chambers. So we'll begin in a couple of moments, and I would like to ensure that all of your names are noted as attending this meeting tonight. Good evening, everyone. Again, I welcome you all to this annual general meeting tonight, Monday the 15th of January 2024. I'll introduce you to our councillors who are present tonight. We have Deputy Mayor Edwards, Councillor Bramich, Councillor Courtney, Councillor Raw, Councillor Highland, Councillor Johnson and Councillor Roberts. At the top table here we have our General Manager, Mr Crawford. We have Mr Summers, who's the Director of Infrastructure and Development Services, Ms Sally Moore-Wood, Manager of Governance and Information Services, and Mr Mitchell Smith, Manager of Financial Services. So we'll begin this meeting at 7:08 this evening, and as I said, a warm welcome and thank you for attending. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Tomagina people, and to pay our respect to those that have passed before us, their history and their culture. I would also like to advise that the meeting will be recorded and live streamed in accordance with the Council Policy GOV 017, digital recording of council meetings. This AGM is an opportunity to reflect on 2023 and also an opportunity for community members to directly participate and submit notices of motions or ask questions to raise matters you consider are important to the community. 2023 was a year of new beginnings for three of our councillors, Councillor Leanne Raw, Councillor Michael Johnson and Councillor Dylan Roberts, together with our new Deputy Mayor, Celisa Edwards. As a council, I think we can safely say we live in interesting times, notwithstanding the challenge of growing inflation costs across the board and the future of local government review. Despite this, over the past 12 months, Waratah Wynyard Council has continued to maintain strong financial management, allowing us to continue investing in our communities, and we have consistently delivered on what we have set out to do. As we move forward into 2024, I am incredibly proud of this council's achievements and know that the hard work and dedication of the General Manager, executive team, all staff and councillors will continue to be at the heart of our success. I now hand over to the General Manager to advise the statutory provisions relating to an annual general meeting.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll just work through a couple of quick points on the screen. So a council must hold an annual general meeting on an annual basis. We must do that no later than the 15th of December in each year, and I'll talk about that a little more in a second. And we must not hold the AGM 14 days after the date of the first publication of a notice. A council must advertise our AGM in a prescribed newspaper, and for us, we did so on the 9th of December and the 6th of January, I should say, and we've also promoted the AGM on social media and via our website. And the next point there in relation to AGMs talk about a quorum, and we have a quorum here tonight, so that is not relevant for our discussions. So at an AGM, electors are allowed to vote on motions that are put forward. So that's really clear, and that's part of the reason, obviously, we record your names as you come in. So in the minutes it will record you as an elector. So you will be able to, at the appropriate time, vote on the matters that go forward tonight. And also you're allowed to participate in the debate. So if you wish to speak to particular items, you're welcome to do so. But everything must be through the chair. So a motion at an AGM is passed by a majority of votes by a show of hands or any other means as the chair determines. So at the conclusion of any particular item, the Mayor will call for a show of hands or whatever other means to record that particular vote. If a vote is successful at the AGM, that doesn't necessarily mean it's enacted. What it means is that that item then goes to the next council meeting for further decision. Okay, so for us, we have a council meeting here next Monday night. So any successful motions tonight will be placed on the agenda for the council meeting next Monday night, and it is only the councillors at that particular meeting that can make a decision on that item. It says there the General Manager is to keep minutes of the annual general meeting, which we will do so and make available. And under the regulations and Act, councils can determine the process that the meetings follow at your AGM. And for us, our council, we follow the same process as what we do at a normal council meeting. So to make it clear, the same rules apply here than what applies at a normal council meeting. I think I'll address the elephant in the room first. We've made this information publicly available, but I just wanted to clarify for those people that are in the room that aren't aware, the first point I raised there that Council must have its AGM by the 15th of December. Now, clearly, we have gone well beyond that date, and so it's important that right off the front we just clarify the reasons for that. Now, bear with me, I will read a couple of things here just to make sure I get my dates and everything correct. But as per Section 17 of the Audit Act, councils are required to submit their draft financial statements within 45 days after the end of each financial year. So in other words, we need to put our financial statements in by the 15th of August, and we did so. So we submitted our statements by the deadline. We submitted our information on the 14th of August, and we received confirmation that our statements had been accepted as materially correct on the 18th of August, so a couple of days later. Under Section 19 of the Audit Act, the Auditor General must finalise his or her audit opinion within 45 days of receiving the financial statements. So in other words, by the 30th of September in each calendar year, the Auditor General must provide their audit opinion back to us. We received our first version of adjustments and statements and updates from the auditors on the 17th of October, and our final statements were not received back until the 4th of December, and we subsequently received a corrected version on the 5th of December. So we will say that our final statements weren't received back until the 5th of December, well beyond the 30th of September deadline. Much of the audit that's normally done early was not completed by the auditors, and we had a number of audit queries and requests that were occurring well through October. We have briefed the audit panel on this particular situation. We've briefed the Director of the local government along all steps of this process to outline the potential non-adherence to legislation. We, as officers, clearly believe that we've responded to all requests in a timely manner, and we have in no way impacted the timing of the audit completion. The date that we received the final statements in early December, clearly then we had a decision to make around when was most appropriate to hold the AGM, and we didn't think that the week of Christmas was that appropriate time, so therefore we determined tonight would be an appropriate date to allow the community best opportunity to attend and advertised accordingly. So I hope that makes sense, Mayor, but that outlines the position as to why we're here, rather than our traditional date, which is usually the last Monday in October when we try to hold our AGM.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Point 5 of this agenda is confirmation of previous minutes. Councillors, before you there is a recommendation that Council receive and note the minutes of the annual general meeting of the Waratah Wynyard Council held at 21 Sworden Street, Wynyard on the 24th of October 2022, previously circulated and adopted at the Council meeting on the 22nd of November 2022. Could I have a mover for this motion, please?
So moved.
Councillor Roberts, could I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Deputy Mayor Edwards. The minutes of the meeting have been circulated and are included as an attachment at the end of this document. Excuse me. Any corrections to the minutes are to be identified and agreed at this point prior to taking a vote to adopting the minutes. Are there any amendments or corrections to be made to these minutes? If there are no corrections or amendments, I put the motion. Could you please raise your hands if in favour of that motion? Deputy Mayor Edwards, Councillor Bramich, Councillor Courtney, Councillor Raw, Councillor Hyland, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Roberts and myself, carried unanimously. Item 6 is Annual Report Public Submissions. Under the provisions of the Local Government Act 1993, Council invited the community to make submissions on its annual report for discussion at the annual general meeting. The closing date for submissions was the 10th of January 2024, and there were no submissions received at the time of agenda compilation. Item 7, Annual Report 2022-23. There is a recommendation before you, councillors. The council note the annual report for the year ended the 30th of June 2023. Could I have a mover for that? Councillor Bramich, could I have a seconder? Councillor Roberts. Mr. General Manager, Mr. Crawford, if you would like to talk to this particular motion.
Thank you, Mayor, and I will be brief in this quick summary of the annual report. Between myself and Mitchell, we'll just work through a couple of points. It is a long time since the 30th of June 2023, so we perhaps will discuss more looking forward than back, just to give everyone here an idea as to where Council's at. But to summarise a couple of points that, and Mitchell will expand on these in a second, that Council's net assets increased throughout the financial year last year by 24 million. So Council now, I guess, is the owner and custodian of $302 million worth of assets. A lot of people don't recognise the significance of the size of Council, and I think that's a really important point to make, that it is a big undertaking to look after and manage $302 million worth of assets. Last year, our underlying surplus ended up in the result of $834,000. We did budget for a surplus of $491,000, so we finished a favourable variance of about $343,000. Our cash at the end of year was just under $14 million. We do have a financial management strategy, and again, we'll talk about this more in a moment, but that does demonstrate a financially sustainable position, not only now but into future years, provided good decisions continue to be made around the council table. And from a capital perspective, we continue to have what I'd suggest is probably record capital expenditure year on year. We're in a heightened period of delivery from a capital point of view. And basically last year spent about $11 million, which is round about the average of what we've done the last couple of years. Further to that, in relation to capital, it is a challenging time from a capital perspective. Certainly the costs of construction are higher than they have been previously and continuing to rise. The ability to attract contractors where required is challenging. Material times and certainly timeframes for permits and approvals is certainly longer than they've ever been. So it is a challenging time for councils to deliver on a capital program. But as I said, we continue to try and work through a much higher program than what we've had in the past, and it's been fairly consistent over the last few years, and we'll see that moving forward, that we are delivering at high levels in this space. Rather than go through a range of details on our capital program, that is all detailed in our annual report, so you can all have a look through the annual report and see highlighted articles, if you like, on feature projects, and also a listing of all of our capital projects and their completion or otherwise in the annual report. But I did want to talk to the Wynyard Waterfront and Environs Master Plan. I think it's really significant when, as a council, we conclude one of our master plans, and we do have a number. And fortunately, in the last financial year, we were able to sign off on that particular master plan as complete. That master plan contained, I guess, 5 components, starting from the wharf upgrades through to Camp Creek modifications. Then we have a seawall and boardwalk, and then finally the new yacht club and community facility. So all of those 5 components made up the bulk of the Wynyard Waterfront Environs Master Plan, and it was really pleasing to be able to cut the ribbon and finalise that plan as a really significant achievement for council last financial year. In terms of a couple of annual plan actions, again, rather than work through them all, you can see them in the annual report, but just to pick out a couple, the Mayor mentioned the election that we had, obviously, in October of 22. For us, we've got 11,904 electors on our electoral roll, and for the first time we had compulsory voting at local government elections. We received a response rate of 86.78%, so significantly higher than what we've seen, obviously, in previous elections. Again, as mentioned by the Mayor, we ended with a new Mayor, a new Deputy, 3 new councillors amongst 14 candidates that ran for those positions. A couple of other points from my perspective that I thought were highlights. The establishment of our Sustainable Environmental Advisory Panel, or SEEP committee as it's often referred to, has been, I think, a wonderful initiative of this council. It's performing magnificently. We have a great representation on that group, working through a range of environmental matters, and I think it can only go from strength to strength, and I think that's been a really positive initiative of council to work through and continue to work through into the future. We had the Governor, Her Excellency, the Honourable Barbara Baker, and her husband, Professor Don Chalmers, give us a visit in October of 22, which gave us as a municipality the opportunity to showcase our area to the Governor and her guests, which was a particularly good day for us. It would be remiss of us not to talk about the future of local government process, and I know there's some motions on that on the agenda later, but clearly that's something that this council has spent a lot of time working on and will continue to do so into the future. All of our submissions that council have made in relation to the future of local government process are publicly available. We encourage people to have a look at those and read those, and there'll certainly be more community involvement into the future. The next stage for us will be a further submission on the final report, which is due in by the end of February, and most likely at this stage to come to the February council meeting for councillors to view. We had a range of other things. Can't hear me? Okay. And a couple of other, positive initiatives around, strategies and master plans. We have a new cemetery strategy, which we haven't had in place in the past, and I think it's worth mentioning our digital transformation strategy, which we're working in conjunction with Circular Head Council as, again, an initiative to upgrade and update our digital infrastructure, our platforms and so forth, and get some consistency between our two councils as we continue to explore both our existing resource sharing arrangements and shared services, and potentially what may or may not come into the future. But that's been an excellent project that we've been working through as well. There were some external acknowledgements made to Council throughout the year, and rather than go through all of those in detail, just to touch on them quickly, we received some external awards for the Tulip Festival and to Spring Loaded. So the introduction of the Spring Loaded program of events was acknowledged. Somerset was acknowledged through the Keep Australia Beautiful Awards, winning the Tidy Town Award for the population category of 1,000 to 5,000. We received a Local Government Professionals Award for our work in social media and the space we do there. And Mayor Walsh was awarded with a Certificate of Outstanding Commitment and Service to Council by the Local Government Association of Tasmania. And I think it's important to highlight that here tonight. Mitchell.
All right, so I just wanted to, I suppose, present a couple of things tonight on Council's financial performance, both in 2022-23, which is the year that the annual report covers, but also give the community a bit of an idea around Council's financial performance looking into the future and what that is likely to look like. So, as Shane mentioned, it's pleasing that Council reported a surplus of $834,000 in the 22-23 financial year, which was $343,000 ahead of budget, and that result now means that Council has delivered a surplus in the last 7 years, which is again showing Council's over a long period has consistently performed well, and continues to maintain a good operating position over a long period of time. In terms of Council's financial position, we continue to maintain a good financial position with healthy cash reserves and also low levels of debt. So the 30th of June, we had cash reserves of just under $14 million, with a significant portion of that uncommitted or not committed cash, and we reduced our borrowings by $360,000 in the 22-23 financial year, and now have borrowings of just under $2.5 million at the 30th of June 2023, which is very low for a council of our size. Council had budgeted in the 22-23 year to borrow $1 million towards stormwater upgrades at Somerset, but with the significant cash holdings Council had, it felt that it was able to defer those borrowings and didn't draw down on them. So again, wherever possible, trying to reduce any debt or not borrow where needed, which was a good outcome for Council. The next slide is just around Council's rating, and Council continues to be a council that has low levels of rate increases. We're well below many other councils in our region and also across the state. Council had a rate increase for the 2023-24 year of 3.75%, and that was the lowest general rate increase in the state. And it was well below the June CPI of 5.5% for the same period, and well below the council cost index, which is put out by the Local Government Association of 8.11%. So it was a pleasing result for the current financial year we're in at the moment. And this is on the back of fairly low increases over the last 5 years. And in comparison to our council to councils across the region, we are quite low rate, have had low rate increases over those 5 years, with an average of 2.27%. And that again compares to CPI at 3.84% over the same period, and council cost index of 3.74%. And we're the second lowest in the state over that in the region, over that 5 year period, with only Devonport providing a lower average rate increase. So the next slide I just wanted to talk about is, I suppose, Council's financial position for the current financial year and where we're headed. So Council again is looking at forecasting to return a surplus. Council budgeted for a surplus of just over $600,000 in this financial year. And the latest forecast update that will be reported to the January council meeting is forecasting a surplus of $1.711 million, which is significantly ahead of budget. And again, is showing that we're in a good financial position. We've got good cash reserves, and we're able to meet our operating expenses. Some of the reasons behind that significant improvement in our position is interest income on our cash reserves is significantly increased with increasing interest rates. We've had some significant supplementary rates income from development in the municipality, so that has boosted our financial result, and we've also received some significant increases in some of our financial assistance grants, which has bolstered our financial result, which is pleasing. And so the last slide I have there is just around council's financial management strategy. So council annually, as the start of its budgeting process, adopts or reviews its financial management strategy, which it did in November 2023. And that financial management strategy projects the next 10 years of where council's headed financially, both in terms of the levels of cash, the amount of capex it's planning to do, and also its financial sustainability. Can it afford to do the level of capex and continue to provide services to the community? That FMS is showing that council will be able to, cover the cost of the capital works that it wants to do over the next 8 years, which is around $52 million of new capital works during that period. It'll have the cash to complete those projects, and it'll also have the financial position to be able to absorb the increased operating costs that come with those capital works. So that's both maintaining those assets that are built, but also the depreciation that comes with those assets. It'll again be able to maintain a surplus position over the full 10 years, and will maintain cash reserves of over $5 million in most of those years, which is two goals council has. And also council, in that FMS, it also includes modest rate increases during that period, and it shows that council will again be able to maintain relatively modest increases in its rates and charges while continuing to do those, build those new capital projects, and maintain a good financial position. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mitchell. To conclude, I just thought it was worthwhile to touch on a couple of projects that we have underway moving forward. Again, that's not traditionally what we do at the AGM, but I think, as I said, given we're so far away from the end of the 23 financial year, that it's important just to look at some of the things we're working on now. This list is by no means exhaustive. It's just a quick snapshot of some of the major projects that are, as I said, underway and happening now, and we've just separated these by, I guess, locality. So for Wynyard, we continue to look at that waterfront projects. I spoke about that a little earlier, but council still have some decisions to make around the use of the yacht club and multi-purpose facility and the future use of that. Clearly, we know that there's existing operators there, and their lease will come up for decision at some point soon. So council will have some decisions to make around how that facility will be used down the track. We're looking at the Fossil Bluff Master Plan, continue to do enhancements in the Fossil Bluff area. Childcare is a really important focus for us this financial year. For those that don't know, we have a significant waiting list at our childcare facility at Waratah Wynyard across the road. Long day care is in great demand in this particular area. We are the primary provider of childcare services in Wynyard, and the council have been working through potential expansion or other opportunities for childcare for a whole range of reasons, notwithstanding that we want families to be able to place their children in local facilities, but equally to provide the economic benefits that allowing parents to be able to go back to work and do what they want to do in their spare time as well. So we'll continue to work in the childcare space quite actively at the moment. The East Wynyard Foreshore Master Plan continues to be a focus of ours. The Wynyard Sporting Precinct is underway and developing very well, and for those people that have taken an interest in that, the Wynyard Districts Cricket Club are now operating from the Wynyard Recreation Ground, are now based there. The the new oval we call Oval 3, which is on the Wynyard High School site, is very close to completion. There's some lighting to go up, but that's well advanced, and for anyone that goes into that area as well. So the Wynyard Sporting Precinct is progressing, and flood mitigation will be a focus for the next 6 months, with a couple of major flood mitigation projects around Port and Big Creek planned to get underway. So we have some big jobs there to look at. Table Cape, our focus there will continue to be around the lookout area. We have made some enhancements to that area, and we'll continue to do so, and to continue to explore possible amenities in that space. For Somerset, a coastal pathway perhaps could have gone anywhere, but the coastal pathway we have now, as of late December, received all the approvals we need now to proceed with that work. So it's pleasing to say that we'll see imminently, any day now, some work on rail removal, and that project underway, and hopefully with completion for that coastal pathway around the end of the third quarter this calendar year is our hope at this point in time. The Somerset Sporting Precinct is back on the agenda, I guess, after a little bit of a hiatus, but we have a working group now refocused on that Somerset Sporting Precinct, and there'll be clearly some decisions made in that space over the next few months, all going well. Changing the order here slightly, the Bass Highway improvements between here and Smithton continue to work our way through, and we've lobbied hard and will continue to lobby hard for Bass Highway improvements. The Cam River Bridge and its duplication and the completion of the existing or the new bridge that's underway, again, we'll continue to be active in that space, and we have managed to negotiate as part of that project a pedestrian underpass under that new bridge, which will link the Cam River Reserve and Anzac Park, and allow for far greater and safer movement of pedestrians through that space, which we're looking forward to. So we'll continue then to complete some work in the Cam River Reserve over the next few months as well. In Boat Harbour, our main focus is around the Boat Harbour Beach Master Plan. Our plans are very well developed. We've got an excellent working group in that space, and really we're ready to go to tender and construct all aspects of that new master plan, pending receipt of hopefully some further funding from the state. So we continue to lobby the state government for some further funding around the Boat Harbour Beach Master Plan. And in Sisters Beach, primarily the item of focus I wanted to highlight was the great work that's been done with the wildcare groups and environmental groups in Sisters Beach around the Sisters Beach estuary area, around a range of projects, including erosion mitigation and so forth, but a range of projects that they're doing in that area. In Waratah, we continue to progress our community plan, very active range of projects in Waratah. The Waratah Falls project, which is a viewing platform at the base of the falls, is well advanced. Our rail bridge interpretation is well advanced, and we have a number of other projects planned for Waratah, including playground improvements and so forth that are underway, and shelter structures and so forth. And then finally, just some of our rural areas, which I guess we group together. Council has been lobbying for quite some time for telecommunications upgrades, and we'll see the fruition of that over the next 12 months or so, where some of those projects start to be constructed, not under our watch, but certainly under other bodies doing that. We continue to explore opportunities for recreational camping infrastructure. The Myalla Recreation Ground is obviously now used for some public camping, and I've mentioned there, I guess, the long-awaited and highly controversial Yolla public toilets. We will continue to identify a location and look to construct public toilets in Waratah as promised. Sorry, we can't take questions at this point. They'll have to come later on. And finally, we continue to work with West by Northwest in relation to agritourism projects and how we can benefit those. So that's a quick summary from Mitchell and myself, Mayor. That's probably enough for now. And we'll pass back to Councillor Bramage to open the debate on the annual report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Crawford. Councillor Bramage, do you wish to open the debate on this particular motion? As there's no debate, I'm going to put the motion. I've just been reminded I need to allow the other councillors to have their say as well. So, Councillor Courtney.
I know everyone's surprised that I'm going to speak. I just want to say that the management team that we have been exceptional. You guys had COVID, and that was a real struggle for this council. We adapted, we brought in social media, we brought in online meetings, which I think has been great for transparency and accountability and certainly community engagement. But I'd also like to thank you because I feel like you only just dusted yourself off from COVID and then the state government put the local government reform on you. And once again, you had to do a job on top of your jobs. The submissions that went back to the local government reform, a lot of the changes that were made were submissions from this council and from this general manager. So I think that we took it quite seriously. We didn't look at it like a lot of the other councils that went, this has come up again. We actually put in very good submissions through this council, through this management team. The fact that you've just got through COVID, then you had the local government reform, and you've not only delivered, you've delivered us in the black again, you've delivered us major projects again, and you've delivered the lowest rates in Tasmania again. So you're a fantastic management team. The staff in this council are fantastic staff, and I just want to take this one opportunity that we get a year to say that you guys have done an exceptional job, and thank you very much for the support that you give us.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Is there anyone else, any other councillor? Councillor Roberts.
I just want to encourage the public, ratepayers, members of our communities to actually read the reports that come out of council. Our quarterly information reports are quite comprehensive, directly from our senior management right to the public. There's 29 councils in Tasmania, 12 of which don't directly run at a loss. 6 of those councils run at a surplus, and we are one of them. And we smash every single metric that there is for success. So as long as we maintain our communication with the public and deliver on the things that our public wants, I just really want to. I couldn't be happier with the senior management team and the work that's gone into this, and I feel very blessed to be on this council, and I get to learn from a successful council, and I can honestly say hand on heart that these guys have delivered an exceptional service. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Hyland.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'd like to point out the consistency over the last 8 or 10 years that the GM pointed out with our and the financial manager, our consistency with our low rate increases, and the fact that all the infrastructure we continue to build and the current infrastructure that we can and afford to do is maintain everything that we build all the way through, and we have done that over the years very successfully. And it sort of just goes to prove that this council works very hard at making these decisions, and above all else, we do accept good qualified advice on how we go about the whole process. So, and we need to continue doing that into the future, and congratulations on the staff for putting that show together, and hopefully the community will support us, and I just ask that you do keep turning up to our community conversations, because that's where we got the opportunity for interaction, and we can bring all your issues forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Are there any further speakers to this motion? If not, I will now put the motion. Could you raise your hands if you're in favour of this motion? Deputy Mayor Edwards, Councillor Bramich, Councillor Courtney, Councillor Raw, Councillor Hyland, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Roberts, and myself voting in favour of this motion. It is passed unanimously. Thank you. I now move on to item 8, notices of motion. Before we call those community members that have put forward motions, I need to remind everyone that we are adhering to our council meeting procedures, and these are the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015. So we are under the guidance of those particular meeting procedures. I need to remind everyone that within the motion, we do not accept defamatory language or any offensive language, and it is important that those proposing their motions, that they understand they have 5 minutes to speak on their motion, and to close their motion they have an extra 3 minutes to close that motion off. So, Councillor Hutchison, you are the first. Councillor, oh, nearly is. Mr. Hutchison, if you would like to come forward. Maybe next time, Mr. Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor Duniam. I'd like to move the motion of the Aldina Reserve restoration. Do you want me to read it out, or? Okay, so that Council negotiate with Sustainable Timber Tasmania for a 3-year lease between 2024 and 2027 for the Aldina Reserve and picnic area, with the option to extend the lease period further and develop an Aldina Reserve restoration and maintenance plan with costings in cooperation and consultation with the community, and invite discussions with local, state and federal representatives and election candidates about the community vision to restore facilities and maintenance of the Aldina Reserve.
Thank you. I now call for a seconder of this for this particular motion from the gallery or the councillors, please. Councillor Courtney has seconded the motion. Would you like to open the debate, please, Mr. Hutchison?
Yes, thank you. I've just got a couple of questions just about the process. Mayor, can you detail what happens if this vote has a majority support for this public motion?
For this particular motion, as indicated by the General Manager earlier, that should this motion pass tonight at the AGM, it then is moved to the general meeting next week for a decision by the Council.
Thank you. Another question, can you detail what happens if this vote has a majority of voters against this public motion?
Then if it is a majority against the motion, then it is simply lost. It does not move on to be included in the agenda for the next general meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Another question, can the public vote online or via a physical ballot box for these public motions, or do they need to be here physically?
I'll ask the General Manager to respond. Yes, the General Manager has just advised that they must be in person here to vote on any particular motion.
Thank you. And one question about the motion in relation to the Aldina Reserve. So I'm just asking if Council can, I guess, give us a couple of reasons why Council in the past has been hesitant or does not believe it has the capacity to manage the Aldina Reserve if it did take it on.
Mr. Hutchison, are you directing that question to me or to the General Manager?
Probably to the General Manager, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford.
Through you, Mayor, I think Council's position on the Aldina Reserve has been made very clear in previous reports to Council. All of those reports are available on public agenda for anyone that wishes to review them. I guess in decision on taking on any assets, first of all, you need to have a purpose. What is the purpose of owning or managing a particular asset? I think that's very important. Secondly, you need to be fully versed around all of the costs, whether they be operational or capital costs that are involved. You need to be aware of any risk implications. To date, if you look, and as I said, the previous reports will highlight a number of reasons as to why Council has been reluctant to, I guess, explore this further. But primarily, it's understanding: is there a community appetite, for interest in this space? Is it a priority project for Council? What is community benefit? Those types of things need to be considered. I could talk, I guess, at length, but that gives you some context.
Thank you. I guess I just want to go back to the last AGM, which was 15 months ago, and Councillor Hyland stated that we need to take a step back and a deep breath in regards to an Aldina Reserve lease. So for those that aren't aware, I should put out the idea of a 10-year lease last year, and that was voted down by electors in the AGM. And then Councillor Hyland also talked about the stakeholder group of community members and councillors. I guess my question for Councillor Hyland is 15 months of inaction a deep enough breath for you? Because there hasn't really been any substantial action by the stakeholder group or by council since that time. And I said at the meeting that we are treading water, and it doesn't feel like it has been any different in all this time. And I guess I ask the same question again, is when will it be time for this to happen? Maybe council isn't the organisation that will carry it forward, but in my opinion it's the only one that has the processes and ability to do so. If you want the history of the discussions on Aldina, there's a background in tonight's AGM in this motion, and the last two AGMs on YouTube are available to watch. I'm not going to focus on that, but I'm just going to talk about a few of the costs and plans. And I just want to acknowledge that in the past, concept plans for Aldina have been floated around $1.5 million for the Pony Club relocation. That was an idea that council supported. Didn't necessarily have the funds to make that happen, but I'm positive that a simple restoration plan for Aldina would have a much lower cost, somewhere in the $500,000 to $700,000 mark initially, with opportunities in the future to secure funding in stages for any future additional developments. Council has great success in securing funds for community projects. I'll give 3 examples. So, report, page 40, the Somerset All Abilities Playground, $1.265 million grant from the federal government's Community Development Grants Program, $550,000 grant from Tasmanian Government Department of Premier and Cabinet Community Grants Program, and a $635,000 council contribution. So the total cost of that playground was significantly small for council compared to the grants received from the government. The Wynyard Sports Precinct Plan grants from the annual report, it said council was successful in its application for a $500,000 improving the playing field state government grant, which is part of a total estimated capital expenditure of $7.27 million for that plan over a total of 8 years. The upgrade to the Table Cape Lookout Precinct, jointly funded by council and a federal government Building Better Regions grant of $305,333. So, as part of the annual report, federal grants totaling $12.39 million, state grants totaling $3.425 million. So in 2 years alone, $15.76 million in grant funding from external authorities. So $9.5 million are in recurring grants and $6.2 million in capital grants. These are for things such as grants for general purpose, roads, local road and community infrastructure program, Building Better Regions Fund, All Abilities Playground, and in recent years the Bike Pathway grants, Yacht Club and English River Boardwalk, redevelopment grants, Boat Harbour foreshore funding commitments from political parties. I also want to highlight in 2022 income minus expenses total a gain of $5.95 million, and in 2023 income minus expenses totaled a gain of almost $3.9 million, and this contributed to the operating surplus of $834,000, which was spoken about before. So I just want to highlight how well this council is doing, and it was explained before that there's healthy cash reserves and low level of debt, so there is room in the future and currently to explore projects like the Aldina Reserve restoration. In terms of plan, I and others have sent ideas for plans for the Aldina Reserve.
They do not mean much until council is ready to develop a plan in collaboration with members of the community. So the council officer in tonight's agenda stated, a meeting of community members agreed that the best course of action for this site was for people with ideas to contact Sustainable Timber Tasmania directly, as it's their land. I disagree with this statement. From feedback, it was council officers that at that meeting who pushed council's position of disinterest onto the community members, of which there are only a handful in attendance. It was reported back to me that members that attended were disenfranchised with the way council approached the stakeholder meeting. What was the point of the meeting if it was just to say council has no interest? And that is highlighted by the fact that no meeting has been held since, even though there was a call to hold another meeting at which councillors were conveniently uninvited or not invited to. A council officer also said the motion calls for council to take on a lease for the area. This should not occur with the absence of information such as use for the site. Full costs are known and understood, and it is considered a desired and agreed course of action for council to undertake. I guess in my view, use for the site will be developed as per the second point, which is in cooperation and consultation with the community. So drawing up a lease won't instantly happen. It'll be a process of developing those plans and finding out those costs and working towards that lease. But without a lease, or at least the prospect that one is being considered, and some commitment to managing the site, the community won't be motivated to develop a restoration and maintenance plan, and neither will the council. I believe that council needs to start the process, as I said, because it has the processes to make things happen. An option could be to accept the public motion tonight, and then council could put in steps to work towards it being adopted by councillors and it be deferred by councillors until use is identified and costs are known. So it doesn't have to immediately come to councillors next week if councillors choose to. I said in October 2021 that we should have a community meeting, but I was ignored, and we're still waiting for someone to start the process. So I'm here to negotiate in good faith, so I'll be open to hearing what others have to say on this motion. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. Councillor Courtney, do you wish to add comment to this?
Just quickly, would you consider an amendment to the motion? The first clause, negotiate with Sustainable Timber for a 3-year lease and to develop an Aldina Reserve restoration. As you know, I'm passionate about getting Aldina Reserve reopened as well, and I was the councillor that was on the committee that didn't get invited to the meeting with Sustainable Timbers. So I would like to see it progress. I would like to see it brought back to the table. But would you consider to negotiate with Sustainable Timber Tasmania to develop an Aldina Reserve restoration and not put the lease in there? Because I think that's the thing that will be hard for us to make to allow the motion to progress.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. So that your motion is to amend this motion. So I just ask, has that been documented? My apologies, everyone. We'll continue in a moment.
We'll work on that, but as I said, the motion...
Thank you, Councillor Roberts.
As I said, Councillor Courtney is suggesting that the motion, and this can happen if the mover and seconder agree, we can make this change, that negotiate with Sustainable Timber to develop an Aldina Reserve restoration and maintenance plans with costings in cooperation and consultation with the community, and invite discussions with local as per the point 3. So we just remove the bulk of item 1. Yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Courtney has moved an amendment. I would like a seconder.
I will second that.
Councillor Roberts has seconded that motion. Councillor Courtney, would you like to speak further to your amendment?
All I'd like to say is that, obviously we've brought this back to the table a few times, and I myself would like Aldina reopened. I think it's a valuable area that a lot of the community uses. As I've said previously, I used to work the Noel Jago track, and after the floods there was no Noel Jago track, and then access got blocked. I think a lot of the vandalism was due to the fact that it wasn't being used. There was no access for the general public, and that I felt that Sustainable Timber had deliberately left the facilities unmanaged to deter people from using it so they didn't have to maintain it. I'd like to talk to them about coming back to the table and reopening that area to the community. So I think this is a good place to start to have those conversations.
Councillor Roberts.
I just want to quickly explain. Each of us as representatives have our own ideas and we have our own goals for being on council, and I would like it put forward that not only myself, Councillor Courtney, Councillor Hyland, most of the council is actually quite open to the idea of Aldina, but we would like to understand the implications of entering such an agreement. This council doesn't make a habit of spending ratepayer money on assets that are not owned by those ratepayers, and I can understand logically why that is the case. But I think that there is some recognition that Aldina is a place of cultural significance to our locals, and regardless of who owns it, I feel that all locals that have grown up here over the many decades it was open have a sense of ownership over it. So I would actually like to, and myself and other councillors would like to see an amicable solution, and at least if there's questions that need answering, that maybe we can actually come to some kind of conclusion there. So I wholeheartedly support this motion, this amendment to this motion, that we actually do, in good faith, look for an alternative solution that would be suitable for all parties. So thank you very much, Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any further speakers to the motion? Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Hyland.
Yes, Madam Chair, look, and I'm not going to tip water on the project, but I'm going to speak against the motion currently, because I think you've got the cart way before the horse. We've been down this track, we've had a discussion with Sustainable Timbers. A project of this size has really got to be driven from the community. Obviously, Councillor Courtney, that'd be good, great, if you could get on the committee and be part of that, but it's all got to
I wasn't invited to the meeting when I was on the committee.
Thank you.
And look, a couple of examples of projects that were mentioned by the mover of the motion, which was the All Abilities Playground at Somerset. Now, that was driven largely in the first instance by the fairy godmothers. I'm not sure how many years, but that's where that came from. And it wasn't just hatched in like 12 months ago. A lot of work went into that, and then when council came on board, they were given assistance in getting funding for that project. The current project at Boat Harbour Beach, the master plan down there, that was hatched about 20 years ago, and people in the community actually started it. Then it developed to some community meetings. It was dropped for a couple of years and then reignited. These major projects just take time and a lot of effort put in by the community and people that are willing to put themselves forward. And if I may suggest that the mover of the motion was asked to go on the working group and declined. He likes to put all the ideas forward, but Mr. Hutchison, you need to be one at the forefront driving the project. If you want this project so bad, and then you'll attract good community members to get on board with you. That's the only way you're going to succeed. But at this stage, no, I'm not in favour of the amendment. It's just far too early to go back to Sustainable Timbers, particularly when they were left with anyone with any particular interest to come back to us. But don't go to them in the next month and say, hey, we want a 3-year lease. God, you've got to have a better plan than that.
Thank you, Councillor Highland. Are there any further speakers to this motion, for or against? Councillor Bramage.
Thank you. Well, along with Councillor Highland, I don't want to tip water on it either. I certainly don't. It was a great asset to us. But let's get real about it. If council take it on just to look after it, we're going to be asking you for a 2% rate increase just to look after that. I'm not prepared to do that to you. I'm quite happy if the community drive it and tell Sustainable Timbers or council what it's going to be used for. There's been none of that come forward yet. Yes, it was very popular years ago. So was Thunder Flats up Calder. That was popular too. Got vandalled. We go to Natone. Natone Reserve was one of the prime locations. What's that? Got vandalled. We can't afford, well, this council, I'm not prepared to put this council in a position to take it on their own. But if you can come up with a plan, yes, I'll listen to the plan. But come on, we've got to be real about it. We just heard how good a financial position we're in. Do we want to stuff all that up because of an Aldina reserve that mightn't go anywhere? I don't think so. There's been 2 lots of toilets up there burned. How are you going to stop that? How are you going to stop it? So, at this stage, I can't support it, but I'm not going to pour water on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bramage. Are there any further speakers? Deputy Mayor Edwards.
Okay. Like, I love the Aldina Pine Plantation. We know we've all got beautiful memories up there. But thinking from a councillor point of view and community, with financials and everything, so I think looking at the motion and some of the words used in there, I think our council is not timid, and they have worked hard in that time, so it wasn't a facade of what was said in the motion. Our council is very progressive and is in a financial good position. They listen to the community and act in the best ways for the community. So, like, I know we've taken the lease out now, but it's like taking on a project with no costings. The land isn't ours, and in that time it was open for people or groups to come forward and discuss directly with Sustainable Timbers Tasmania prior, and nobody has done that over the last year or 2. So yes, I would like to see something done, but at this moment in time with no costings, it's not our land. I agree with the officer's report to not take on the motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Edwards. Are there any further speakers to this amended motion? If there are no further speakers, Councillor Courtney, would you like to sum up, please?
Yeah, I'll just sum up that the amendment is to negotiate with Sustainable Timbers, with the community, to develop a plan. That was it. Not take on an asset, not make any guarantees. Talk to Sustainable Timbers in the community to develop a plan. Okay?
Thank you, Councillor Courtney.
I just have a question. Are we about to vote on the amendment to the motion? Okay.
Yes, Mr Hutchison, it is the amendment that we are now going to vote on.
So councillors that have just spoken are voting against the amendment. Okay.
That is what they have indicated. So when we take a vote on it, we will determine just what the outcome will be. Councillor Raw?
Can I just ask a clarification question, please?
Yes.
Is that possible?
Yes.
So what Andrea just stated is what we are voting on. So point 2 and point 3 of the motion have now slipped off, are not in the motion that we're voting on. Is that correct?
You're voting on the amendment, which is that council negotiate with Sustainable Timber to develop an Aldina Reserve restoration and maintenance plan with costings in cooperation and consultation with the community, and invite discussions with local, state and federal representatives and election candidates about the community vision to restore facilities and maintenance of the Aldina Reserve. So the part that has been omitted is the 3-year lease component. So you'll vote on the amendment, that is everyone here that is an elector, votes on the amendment. Should that be successful, then that becomes the motion and the debate can recommence.
Thank you, Mr Crawford.
Councillor Courtney has closed.
Yes, it's closed. Thank you. We have had a summing up, Mr Ewington, so...
Madam Chairman, any of the members are allowed to have talk towards and against this motion amendment or not?
You can vote for or against.
We're allowed to vote, we're not allowed to talk for and against the amendment.
Just a moment, I'll confer with the General Manager.
Good, thank you.
Through me, yes. All of you that are electors of this municipality can speak to any of these items tonight. The same as any of the councillors here are entitled to vote. You're also entitled to speak to those items. You can't at this moment because this matter's been closed, this amendment, but just in a second, after we have the first vote, the debate will recommence and any one of you are able to come forward to the microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Crawford. Yes, I'm sorry for the confusion. However, it is the amended motion. I'm going to put the amended motion and I'm going to ask Mr Summers to count the yes votes, which we will undertake first, and Ms Sally Moore-Wood to count the no votes at the end of this particular voting procedure. So, I now ask all of you to raise your hands if you are in favour of this particular motion. You counted in the councillors as well? Thank you. 21. That's 21-4. Those against, would you please raise your hands? 7 against. The amended motion has carried. It now becomes the motion. So I now reopen the debate on the amended motion. So if there is anyone from the community, the gallery, that wishes to speak, would you please come forward?
May I ask a question, just so I got it right, please? The only difference between this motion is the 3-year period out of it. Is that correct?
Sorry, Councillor Bramage, could you please repeat your question?
Right. Yep. All good now, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so are there any speakers for this motion? The amendment is now the motion, so are there any speakers that would like to make comment? Could I have your name, please?
Susan Robertson.
Susan Robertson.
I'm not quite sure. I can only go on Chinese Whispers and Aldina. When I was young and we went to Aldina, it was beautiful. It wasn't burnt, the toilets and everything. And what I understand is that Aldina was offered to council and the council turned it down, and then it deteriorated from there. This is what I understand, but I don't know if that's actually factual. But I do know that it was burnt down, and it just all of a sudden loads of us were going down there having a wonderful time, and then it was destroyed. So people who have never been there, it is a beautiful spot, and a lot of us miss it very much, young and old. Okay, so I think I hope you pass at this time, and we do have the money to do it, guys. You know, maybe if you didn't go over budget on some of the other stuff, we'd still have a bit more money, but I'm sure we can do it all together.
Thank you, Ms Robertson.
Thank you.
Are there any further speakers from the gallery? Mr Ewington.
Yes. Wasn't intending to say anything tonight, Madam Chairman, but I thought I'd better say
You're
something.
welcome.
Aldena Nature Reserve, it was a beautiful site way back in my childhood days, and I feel there's opportunity for it to develop to a certain stage, even have it for a place where you can go have picnics and that sort of thing without having to build toilets and other things. Start from scratch, just develop it a little bit, mow it, contain it, put a lot of vegetation there. People would go for walks and stuff like that. Well, the feel of the people in the community is they just want somewhere they can go and enjoy the scenery and stuff, and there's opportunities to put walkways and other sort of venues in there and small probably barbecues and stuff like that. I don't think they're asking for toilets and complexes and big things, just something small, a place where people can go and enjoy the day out and have a bit of a good time. And I do encourage the councillors to give it a chance and give it a bit of a go. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr Ewington. Are there any further speakers from the gallery? Dr Crabber, if you would like to come forward.
Thanks, Mayor Dunham. I just want to, following on from what Councillor Courtney said, that I don't think this would necessarily commit council to a lot of resources in the short term. I think it's more about the opportunity for mobilisation of the community, of seeing who in the community is able to step up and then perhaps attract resources from other sources. So I think there is a lot of community interest in Aldena Reserve and a lot of interest in something happening there. So I think it really takes the council to sort of encourage that, to encourage community mobilisation, not necessarily for council to put up a lot of money towards this. It's about mobilising the community, I think, for something that they really value. You know, if community does value this, then I think it's up to community to sort of work on a plan, but hand in hand with council, I think, to contribute at least a staff person's time to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr Crabber. Are there any further speakers? Mr Walsh.
Yes, well look, I'd just like to fill us in on a bit of background on the Aldena Reserve, and it goes like this. For the first 25 years of the Aldena Reserve's life, I was in charge of it. The establishment, the maintenance, the vandalism and all the rest of it. And we were given the Forestry Tasmania, Forestry Commission, or the various changes of names of the timber industry of the government, provided funding and more funding and more funding. There'd be a 30-person regional employment development grant, and we would employ 30 or 40 people over there, the Noel Jago track and the Aldena Reserve itself, to establish it. There was enormous funding poured into that, and the toilets were built, contractors built the toilets, and look, it would make you cry to see the vandalism that took place in that area. And I myself know what it costs this council in relation to maintaining our community toilets in our municipality. And look, if the council, this community took on what it would cost us in rates to maintain a facility like this, it'd be lovely to see it going again, but for goodness sake, not at the burden of this council. Let the government be the ones that bring it on board in some form, and we perhaps receive the funding to maintain it, but look, it would break this council and make you cry to see the vandalism that takes place over there once the lights go out. I'd just like to put everyone in the picture of the history of it. Like, there's been beautiful weddings held over there, there's been funerals held over there, and it was a marvellous place and a beautiful setting, but somehow or another it can't be a burden on our ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh, for your insight and for explaining just how valuable Aldina Reserve has been. Councillor Bramage.
Thank you. Look, how this motion reads at the moment, I'm not totally against it. Now, we're sharing a mic here and we'll try and do it without sitting on the young lady's knee. Now, along with what we just heard from Mr. Walsh, while ever I'm at council, I won't put the ratepayers through that either. We just don't realise how much money it will cost. Mr. Hutchison, your ideas are good, mate, but we've got to be practical. Yes, wouldn't it be fantastic to have a reserve at Aldina again? But look, you've got to put your neck out a bit further on the line. It's no good of making the bullets and not firing them.
Excuse me, our meeting procedures suggest that, or actually the rules of the meeting procedures are no interjections, you allow people to speak.
Did I say something wrong? I apologise if I did.
Thank you, Councillor Bramage, if you would keep going.
Thank you.
I want to raise a point of order. The personal abuse, the personal nature of the councillor's remarks to Mr. Hutchison.
Oh, well, if he takes personal, I take offence.
I'm taking the
Councillor Bramage, would you just wait a moment, please? Yes, I'll accept your point of order. And over to you, Councillor Bramage.
Well, I was just trying to highlight what Councillor Hyland highlighted earlier, that you got to get on the committee too to drive it. It's not going to just driving it here tonight. Drive it into the future as well. But as I say, I'm not totally against this motion how it reads, but it can't be any burden on this council. It really can't. It's got to be driven by the state government. We just heard how much it could cost, and we know that. So I should suggest you talk to Parks and Wildlife, you talk to the local members of Parliament, and all that sort of thing as well, not just council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bramage.
Sorry if I've upset anybody.
Thank you for your apology. Councillor Roberts.
Look, I just want to clear up any confusion for anyone in the gallery or anyone at home. The minute that Councillor Courtney has amended this motion, it actually becomes the motion that's amended that we're voting and speaking on. So for anyone that has, any councillors that have just spoken about the need to look at the feasibility of this or talk to them or maybe communicate it or speak to the public or do it of their own initiative, the amendment that Councillor Courtney has just put up has asked for that, right? So let's first understand what we're talking about here. Councillor Courtney has not asked for any money to be spent. She has not asked for any ratepayer money to be spent. She has not asked that council commit to anything, nor that council promise anyone anything. All Councillor Courtney has asked for is that we as a council in good faith talk to our community, talk to the stakeholders of the Aldina group, and actually maybe get some communication happening between the public and the council as to what some of the issues are that we face. Now, as you see, we're lucky to have councillors like Councillor Bramage who refuse to raise your rates to any excess level, who will always look out for the pocket of the worker in our community and the parents in our community, and I cannot commend Councillor Bramage enough for that. So these people, while they may not be sound interested, I assure you that they are, but perhaps that they see the barriers that are facing us as too much, whereas I can assure you that myself, Councillor Courtney, we do see that there could be potential here for our community to actually access an area of cultural significance for themselves. I believe there is a way that we could perhaps accrue funding for this project. I think there is a way that we communicate with Sustainable Timbers that would so they could understand the actual impact that our community faces by having Aldina closed. And I just really think that whether it's feasible or not, I think we have a duty as councillors to actually follow up on the requests of our public and provide the leadership. Now, as a councillor, I think it's unkind and unfair to ask our community to provide the leadership for us. So I think it is very important that our council shows some leadership on this and actually steps up, and whether it is possible or not, actually does so in good faith. Right? Now, people can say that Mr. Hutchison can go to the meeting or sign up to the meeting. Now, I've actually spoken out at a council meeting about this, about how the fact that our own councillors actually...
Councillor Roberts, could you please focus on the motion itself, please, because
Yes.
that is what we are endeavouring to...
And again, I'm just trying to point out that it is our councillors have actually tried to attend the meeting and to probably sort out some of this stuff, and through some mistakes that were made, they did not get that opportunity. Now, I would very much like it if we could please put this back on the agenda, and as we have voted on this amendment, and for the next meeting next Monday, that perhaps we can provide some clarity for our constituents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Mr. Hutchison, would you please... sorry, I missed that. Yes, would you like... come forward, and if I could have your name, please. Mr. Higgins?
I'd just like to point out the words negotiate, develop and invite. There is no commitment in any of those words in this motion. This is about the idea of getting something started. There's no commitment to any money. This is all we want, is a start, because you've got to start somewhere, and this is it. And without a start like this, if we just wait and go, oh, we'll wait for Cody or someone else to come up with another plan, it's going to be another 15 months before we get anything going again. We need to draw a line in the sand now and say, yes, can we get that going, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. Mr. Hutchison, would you come forward and close the debate, please?
Is there anyone else who wants to speak to the motion?
You can speak, Councillor Courtney, but the Mayor has called for the matter to be closed. Like it or not, but the Mayor has called for the closure, so that's what we must proceed with. It's not...
I've asked Mr. Hutchison to close the debate.
I'll allow other people to speak to the motion that haven't had an opportunity, because invitations have been put out for any of the electors to speak to this motion.
Councillor Courtney, if you would like to...
Okay, well, so once again, the amendment is just talk to Sustainable Timbers, the government and the stakeholders to develop a plan. I'd like to just note that we put a bloody large effort in looking at moving the pony club down there. We got consultants and we got designs and we talked to them. Why would we do that if we're not looking at using that area? Why would we do that for one group but not do that for the community as a whole? This is just, can we have the discussion? That's all this amendment is.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney.
Is there anyone else? Last chance.
Councillor Hyland.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Look, I really feel that I've just got to add this bit. Now, you're consistently saying we need to have a discussion with Sustainable Timbers. There's a lot of... I just don't know that the community realises the amount of work that's going to have to go into this before you go anywhere. You've got up there having discussions with state, federal government and all sorts of things. The first thing they're going to want to know is who's going to take ownership of it. Where's all this sit? Where's it lie? You've got to have a lot of things in place before you can go anywhere. I'd say there's 2 or 3 years work for a community groups to put in. And you've got to put the hard work in if you want to have success. It's no good going in with a half story, particularly with the contentious issue we had to start with Sustainable Timbers. Very touchy, and if you're going to do anything at all with that Aldina Park, you need Sustainable Timbers on side from day one. Because obviously at the end of the day, you'll require a bit of assistance out of them for roadworks, any work that involves in that forest area. So you've just got to get your ducks lined up. Sorry, but that's the reality of a project.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Mr. Hutchison, I now ask you to close the debate.
I won't take too much time, and I appreciate everyone that spoke to the motion, and there was some important points made and some insights given. Yes, it is correct that we don't know what the risks are and what the costs are, but what I'm proposing is that council find those things out so that it can stop using that as an argument for stalling this project from even getting started. So what I would like to see is now under this amended motion, which does reflect the community sentiment in the room that was indicated before, that we go through the process of finding out what the costs are and developing a plan with the community instead of saying it's too hard, let's not do anything. This motion actually motivates council and the community to work together to achieve an outcome. And the outcome might be to not do anything, but the outcome might be to do something small, or with the assistance of grants and funds from outside sources, not council resources, so that there are no rates increases and no drains on council's financial projections. We actually have those options on the table. At the moment, we don't have any options on the table except for should we, shouldn't we. So I'm calling for people to support this amended motion because I think it's a good chance to see some progress in this Aldina Reserve restoration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. I'm now going to call for a vote. Mr. Summers, if you would count the yes votes. So those in favour, would you please raise your hands? Those wishing to vote against the motion, would you please raise your hands? The motion has been carried, 24 for, 6 against, and I thank you for your forbearance through this process. Mr. Hutchison, you have another motion that you wish to put forward on the release of the Workplace Improvement Report. If you would come forward, please.
Thank you.
It's your call, your decision. If you feel that you need to not vote or leave the room for this particular item, then it's your call. I'll leave it in your hands. Councillor Hutchison, if you would put forward your motion.
The motion is that council management release to councillors and the public in the March 2024 ordinary open council meeting agenda an unredacted copy of the full report, which is a 12-page report dated 3rd of September 2013, titled Waratah Wynyard Council Report on the Organisation's Ability to Resolve Issues by Mr. Neil Johnson of Small Business Safety Systems. If we could have that on the screen just for the benefit, if we amend it or do anything.
If you've put the motion, I need a seconder for that motion, please, to be discussed. Could I have a seconder for the motion, please, from the floor or from the councillors? Ms. Robinson is seconder for this particular motion. Mr. Hutchison, would you please open the debate?
Thank you. I'd just like to highlight past discussions about transparency and accountability. It was a bit of a theme for council meeting discussions over the last year, and Mayor Dunyam has spoken about the importance of transparency and accountability. In my experience, there are some things that council is open and transparent about, and there's some things that they are required to, under various rules and regulations, to keep from the public. There's a bit of tension between what I think should be made public and what council thinks should. But I feel like with this particular report, should have been released, at least in some form, to the public around the time that it was actually presented to council management. I'm of the opinion that councillors, not all councillors at the time, were able to view that report, and ones that did view the report had to sign a confidentiality agreement. But I believe, given that it's now a 10-year-old plus report, I think to demonstrate the values of transparency and accountability, when requested that these reports are made public, in good faith, that the community can make a judgment as to the performance of the council and the performance of the elected representatives, more importantly, because we don't know if things were in reports that were actually communicating things other than what council was communicating at the time. So we need to, compare and contrast what's said in the public domain with what actually is in reports, independent reports conducted about council. So I've attended with repeated requests to the council to release information comparing past workplace culture to contemporary performance and workplace culture now. So primarily for the purpose of councillors being able to, see progress within council, or if necessary, highlight areas for improvement. Now, I'm not saying that there is any problem with workplace culture now, but the public would have no idea if there was, unless that was detailed specifically to members of the public by council staff. So in the past months, I've requested directly here at council meetings and been refused for information. I've put in applications to the general manager and through a right to information request, and they've both been rejected. It's now with the Ombudsman, which is the Tasmanian body that investigates or determines whether public authorities need to be investigated or information needs to come out. So what I'm asking is that the community support the motion that it has access to information, not all information, but clearly when requested it is presented to the public in some open and disclosed process. And the sooner the report is released, the more tools councillors and the public have to assess progress. So I'm asking for electors to support this motion because I'm not certain or guaranteed that other processes will get this report released. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. Could I have other speakers? Councillor Hyland.
Question first.
The question directed to who?
Directed to Mr. Hutchison.
Okay, I'll allow that question.
Given the document, I think it's 2012, 2013, and I think I'll be corrected, no doubt, Mr. Hutchison came on the scene attending council meetings about 2021, 2022, 2021? No, earlier. 2019. Anyway, I'd just like to ask why you're actually pursuing this information. Have you been requested at any stage by anyone to pursue it? It just came out of the blue and it's never been sort of not let up. I'm just very dubious to your interest in the subject.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Mr Hutchison,
Yeah, I
your
will respond to the
response.
question. Thank you for your interest. I don't get many questions from you, so that's great, Councillor Hyland. No, I haven't been requested to seek this information. This is after personal inquiries following debate at council meetings earlier last year. I think you were involved in some of those debates. I asked a number of questions at council meetings. Some of them were actually refused to be responded to because I asked councillors about having access to this information, and the Mayor refused councillors the right to respond to those. So this motion represents a culmination of attempts otherwise to access information within the council that has otherwise not been presented. So that's why I'm asking for this particular motion. This particular report is I didn't know the name of the report until I put in a right to information request, and that came back from the council's right to information officer and gave me that information of the name of the report, let alone the contents, but I was refused the actual report, redacted or unredacted. It hasn't been made available to me or to the public. So I'm hoping that through this process, the community will and electors will stand and support the release of the report, and that will be communicated to councillors who will make a determination if need be next meeting.
Thank you, Mr Hutchison. Councillor Raw.
Yeah, look, I'd just like to clarify a few things around this issue that's been going on with Cody for quite a while. In my past work life, I worked for a very large organisation, the Education Department in Tasmania. And so when moving or being elected to council, one of the things I realised was that I was going to a new big organisation that was going to be different to the Education Department, which I knew well. And so I thought, well, I'm going to have to learn how to work in this new organisation and to be the best councillor that I can be. And so one of the things was I looked for documents and things that would help me learn how a local council goes or what it does. And so in looking for those documents, there are plans, strategies and guidelines that the council has to follow. There's legislation and from state and federal government legislation. And of course, you know, council meeting procedures. There are so many things that help us look at the way we work to be a running and good and proactive council. One of the good documents that I found was the Good Governance Guide for Local Government in Tasmania. And so I want to directly look at that document now related to what Cody's asking. So the Good Governance Guide states that from section 28 of the Act, so it's in legislation, it's in the Act, that elected members collectively serving as a council are responsible for setting and monitoring high-level strategy and policy. They're not concerned with the operational activities of council administration. So that's on page 23. The General Manager is responsible for the operational functioning of council staff. So it became very clear to me when all these questions were being asked that as a councillor, it's not my role to generally ask what is the workplace culture of the council staff and why is it like that. It's very clear that as a councillor, my role is to ask of the General Manager what best practice policies, plans and programs are in place to support a good workplace culture for council staff, and is there a timeline where these policies and plans and programs are updated? And we cover these types of questions in our council workshops. So from that, the workplace culture and similar type documents are confidential and they remain in the domain of the general manager. So I ask about policy and practice and make sure that it's there. The general manager runs the way it works. Having been in a school, we did a lot of workplace culture surveys and they rely on trust. If you are being asked, what do you think of your manager and what is your manager doing? If you want to move on that and make a change, it relies so much on trust. Can you imagine any staff member here at the council who makes a comment about how they would like the workplace culture to improve if they make a comment and suddenly they find it's accessible in the whole domain of the municipality? They are not going to put down comments or make statements that are personal and close and may be used to improving the culture. As soon as it becomes a public domain, it stops the staff survey and those sorts of documents as being real documents that can be used to make actual change within the workplace. Now, I've worked a lot with these types of documents in schools and I know that that is a fact. They're in-house, they rely on trust, they rely on good working relationships, and if you lose that, they're useless documents. So that's why workplace culture and similar types of documents are confidential, they remain in-house, and so then I just see the continual questioning of getting these documents in the public domain. It's not going to happen because it's in the legislation for it not to happen. It's not councillor domain. It's not the public domain. And it won't work. It's an in-house thing. We have to really respect that Shane runs his organisation well, and we have all that coming up tonight with budgets and future plans. It's a well-run organisation. Those sorts of documents need to remain in-house to be effective and used for making the organisation better. So my question then to Cody then is, so it's in the legislation, so the documents aren't going to come through. You've asked the Ombudsman to deal with it, so he's dealing with it. So why are we repeatedly asked these questions that A, are not appropriate, and B, we're not able to give them?
Thank you, Councillor Raw. Councillor Rob. Deputy Mayor Edwards, sorry, what was?
It was a question to Cody. That
yep. Mr. Hutchison, could you please respond to the question?
So I was made pretty aware early on that the questions wouldn't be answered, so that's why I went down the pathway of a right to information request, and those were subsequently denied, and that's why I've gone to the Ombudsman on recommendation of Councillor Hyland, in fact, so kudos to you, thank you very much. And what I would like to say is that legislation is interpreted, so if you have a specific reference to the legislation, there's actually processes for disclosure within the Tasmanian Parliament Acts, so there is actually a process for getting public documents, public authority documents made public. So what I'm attempting to do here is to see if there's an appetite within the community to release those documents that the council won't release, to communicate to councillors that maybe there were some issues in the past that need to be disclosed because there are potentially issues ongoing, and I stated that in my application that councillors may or may not have had access to, that there is a continuation of staff from that period that the report referred to up until this point, or very close to this point. So this is why I'm doing it, is because I don't have a lot of faith in the Tasmanian Ombudsman to do it in a timely fashion or to do it at all. So I'm hoping that we can accelerate the process through this public motion opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. I will say that in speaking with the Director of Local Government over this issue, his advice was that this matter is operational and not a governance matter for this particular council at this time, and therefore that was the response that you were given. I do ask you a question as well. Why this particular document, if you could please clarify?
I believe I answered that question before, but just for the benefit of yourself, I made a series of questions in the middle of last year in response to debate that was happening between councillors, and naturally I'm interested in council affairs, so I sought clarity on some of that information and whether councillors had seen any of the information that related to those issues. I didn't actually know what the particular report was entitled until council told me. So this particular document is what the council said, this is what we're not going to release to you. So that's why I'm pursuing this document, because you won't release it to me or the public.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. You did explicitly ask for a certain document, and my question is around that one particular document. Are there any for Deputy Mayor Edwards?
Yes. I have a question through you, Madam Mayor, or the General Manager. Even if this motion is favourable and gets up tonight, can the report be released if it's in the hands of the Ombudsman?
Through me, yes. I guess council could determine to release the report at any stage. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Councillor Roberts.
Look, I just quickly want to make note of a few things here. Despite how the legislation reads, it is, if anyone follows local government in Tasmania, I won't mention which council, but councillors have been stood down over the actions of their senior management and general manager in Tasmania at current, and so it does go to show, no matter how that legislation reads, we will be held personally responsible for any actions that happen at council under our watch. So how can we do our job diligently without the information available to us to know if said actions are being taken care of appropriately? Now, I have complete faith in this general manager. He does an amazing job, and we are very fortunate to have him, so I have no concerns in that regard. But just a quick note I want to make here is that, look, I've worked at council. I'm a former employee at council. I'm a very proud former employee at council. I'm very proud to have worked for this organisation, and I'm currently very proud to sit as a councillor on this organisation. And I just want to stress that, unlike what Councillor Raw has stated, I do care about the operations of this business. I do care about the staff at this business. I do care about the mental health and the happiness of every single person that works here. And I definitely am very interested in all information that will enable me to do my job. Now, whether that is by the release of this report or whatever is not. But going forward, I just want it to be known that I myself do care about the mental health and well-being, the current state emotionally of all our employees, and absolutely that should be precedence above near all things. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor
I'd
Roberts.
just like to clarify, Mayor, that I actually do care, and I think it's through my sophisticated understanding of surveys.
A point of order. I think Councillor Raw has actually had her chance to speak.
Yes, thank you. I was about to ask you not to speak again. Thank you, Councillor Raw. Are there any further speakers from the floor or around the council table? Councillor Bramage.
Thank you. Don't like me to talk, isn't it? Well, comment was made earlier about councillors signing confidentiality letters or something like that. I've been at this council for 25 years and proud of it. No one ever put a letter in front of me. I'd just like to know where you got that information from. Mr. Hutchison?
Mr. Hutchison, you have been asked a question. Could you please respond?
Specifically, what information are you talking about? Sorry.
Well, you made the comment about councillors signing, some councillors may have signed a confidentiality report. You made that comment earlier.
Yes.
Where'd you get that information from, may I ask?
You may ask that, and I'll ask you to submit a right to information request and discuss with me personally. Thank you.
No, let's do it here tonight. That's the question. The comment was made in this room a while ago. So I expect an answer now.
I'll take that on notice. Thank you,
Thank you, Councillor Bramich and Mr. Hutchison.
Now you know what it feels like, don't you?
Excuse me, Mr. Hutchison. We shall move on. Yes, you wish to ask a question or make a comment? And could you please give us your name?
Barry Walsh.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a thing about this question you're going back to. It's 2013. Why don't we give up and get on with the job?
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Yeah. State your name for our record, please.
Corey Spears.
Thank you, Mr. Spears.
Yes. Through you, Madam Mayor, I was actually an employee at council of this report's release, and I understand the contents of the report in the position that I was in at council at that time. And I can guarantee you it has absolutely no validity or purpose to the council that I see before me now, the organisation. Most of the issues raised in that report were resolved pretty rapidly after that report was actually released. And I'm sure if you conducted another survey of staff that followed similar lines that were actually in that report, it would be the complete opposite of what was actually in that report. So I really don't actually see any reason to release that report, any value in looking at that report. It's 10 years old, doesn't actually make any sense. So.
Thank you, Mr. Spears, for your comments. Are there any further comments from the floor or questions? No, Councillor Raw. You can ask a question.
My question would be to Councillor Roberts, and how does he assume that, or how he has inferred that I don't care about staff and the people here? If you knew me as a person, how I've worked in my organisation before coming to council, the breadth of understanding that I have around these concepts, I actually find that offensive that you infer that I don't care.
Could you please respond, Councillor Roberts?
Absolutely. I don't mean to infer that you don't care, but just in response to what you said about how it's not our business and its operations isn't ours, and yeah, so basically, yeah. So I just want to actually state that I personally, it's not mutually exclusive. I'm not stressing that you don't. I'm just saying, unlike what you said, I'm the opposite. So indeed, and having worked here, I can understand why.
Well, perhaps
you have another question, Councillor Raw.
Do I have another question? Perhaps Councillor Roberts could look into big organisations like education departments and places like that that use surveys, staff surveys, and how you use those surveys, and perhaps my way of working and the way
Point of order, is this a question or a statement?
Yeah, is it a question, please, Councillor Raw?
Perhaps my question then would be to ask Councillor Roberts to look further into the use of staff surveys and how you use them in big organisations.
Thank you. I'm going to close the debate now, thank you very much, and ask if Mr. Hutchison would summarise.
think the point of this is for all of us, including the people of Wynyard. I said the word Chinese whispers the last time I was talking. The talk in Wynyard and through many people here is that a lot of council or people who work here, some are rude and some are brilliant, and things are not great in other ways. So I suggest, because you don't hear this, but I hear it, and a lot of us others do hear it, this transparency, as you're so proud of, is a little lacking. Okay?
Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you.
I am going to close the debate now. Mr. Hutchison, would you please summarise?
I don't think there's much more to say other than this motion is an attempt to, I guess, encourage council to look into its transparency practices and try and be proactive in releasing information when requested to by the public. I don't request any type of information. This is a specific request by a member of the public, and I would hope that other members of the public, when they make similar requests, are presented with with the information that they seek, unless there are really good reasons to do otherwise. And there was a comment before around the relevancy of this report. If it's irrelevant and it doesn't have a lot of bearing on current council, then why keep it secret? And if it does have bearing on the current council, then maybe councillors at least need to see that report and a subsequent report, if there are any, or potentially a new workplace survey needs to be undertaken, but that's another matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. I will clarify. I did say that your request is not relevant to the role of governance of this council. I'm going to call for a show of hands. So, Mr. Summers, if you could count the hands raised to support this motion. Please raise your hands, those who support it. Those against, could you please raise your hands? 13. Thank you. The motion has been lost. Moving on to item 8.3, Mr. Hutchison again, the Morlea Multipurpose Recreation Centre. Would you please come forward and propose your motion?
Yes, I move the motion that council undertake a feasibility study for a new contemporary multi-purpose recreational centre to serve the communities of Morlea, Prialina, Laponia, Millabina, Myala, Miuna, located near the junction of Laponia Road, Prialina Road and Pages Road in Morlea, and prepare a cost-benefit report as part of the feasibility study in one, including inputs from initial stage of community consultation, and present the final feasibility study to councillors and the public in an open ordinary meeting agenda of council prior to the end of 2024. I move that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. Could I have a seconder for that motion?
Seconded.
Councillor Roberts. Mr. Hutchison, would you please open the debate?
All right. I really wish to thank members of the public for journeying with us so far. We are going at a motion an hour, so let's speed. Millabina, which is 11 kilometres from the Morlea Crosswords, does not have a hall. Miuna, which is 20 kilometres from the Morlea Crosswords, used to have a hall, demolished in 1997 following a mass dislocation of farmers from the area due to tree farms. Laponia, which is 3.4 kilometres from the Morlea Crosswords, does not have a hall. Prialina, 15 kilometres from the Morlea Crossroads, the community centre in Prialina was sold in 2020 following 7 years of a lack of maintenance by the council. And surrounding areas, Calder, which is 14 kilometres from the Morlea Crossroads, used to have a hall that was council managed but was privatised a number of years ago, and I don't hear or see much use for this space. And Flowerdale, which is 9 kilometres from the Moorlea Crossroads, has not had a public community facility for a number of years. In relation to Moorlea, in time, if not already, the Moorlea Hall facilities at the existing in need of some serious restoration to bring this hall up to acceptable standards and in line with community expectations. There are a number of problems with that facility, including flooring damage, toilet standards, accessibility of the toilets, size of the main hall facility, acoustics of the facility, storage challenges, outdated furniture, inadequate parking for large events, lack of roadside fencing, and low levels of cleaning and maintenance. Costs to use the facility are not publicly listed and are potentially subject to unfair use costs. As far as I'm aware, use of the hall is limited, and in recent years public events are largely unpromoted. It's difficult for an outsider to measure the use of the facility. In Myala, there's a recreation ground and community centre combining indoor facilities with outdoor spaces. That receives some regular use. The entrance to that is actually 2 kilometres from the old train line crossing over Myala Road in the Myala Township. So the actual community facility in Myala is situated in Sisters Creek, as an anecdote. And by comparison, the Moorlea Crossroads, which is the site of a proposed regional facility, is 9 kilometres away, which is an additional 7 kilometres drive. So the point I wish to make here is that the Moorlea Crossroads represents a central location for 6 rural communities. It's in the southwest area of the municipality, just inland of Wynyard, an approximate location for 2 more rural communities, so that's Flowerdale and Calder. This represents a population of a minimum of 500 people, up to 1,000 people, according to the ABS stats in 2021. So just before I talk about the cost, I'd just like to ask a question of the General Manager. For a population of 500 people, is Council providing adequate and strategic recreational opportunities for the rural communities of Laponia, Millabina, Miuna, Prialina, Moorlea and Myala?
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison.
Through you, Mayor, it's probably not a question I can answer tonight, but I can say that up until this point we haven't had this issue raised with Council in my time here.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers to this? You haven't finished? Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
Got a little bit more to say. So in the motion and the background information, which is in the council agenda, there is quite an extensive list of information that I've provided for the benefit of the public. I appreciate that maybe not everyone's had the chance to look at that, but I want to focus a little bit on the cost. And I talked earlier about the council abilities to receive federal and state grants, but I believe that investment into the Moorlea Hall and the Myala Community Centre has been limited over the past number of years. There has been some investment, so I acknowledge that. But I also make comment on the Prialina Community Centre. And if anyone would like to go through the history as I see it in relation to funds, I'm happy to discuss personally, but just due to time, I'm just going to shorten it down a little bit. It was sold in 2020 for $30,000. That was after an expression of interest process by this council. I've estimated the value of that, if that community centre was still held in council hands, could have anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 in asset value, based on comparing property price increases around the area. So the reason why council didn't want to keep that hall is because it was going to cost $35,000 to restore it and get power back to that. So as a resident of Prialina, that represents an asset loss to our community of between $230,000 and $330,000 from that community, which once was a thriving rural community. And in that process, that sort of represented the last outer community space, if we're giving Wynyard as the reference point. So now all of those communities have to use community facilities in other rural areas. I understand that a project this nature doesn't happen overnight, but it won't happen at all if the start is not on the horizon. So this idea hasn't been presented to council, so that is correct. This is an idea that has been developed in consultation with some of the community members in the area that I've just spoken about, but largely the research I've undertaken to establish a little bit of a hub for those rural communities that need a meeting point to bring community together, to give people a sense of belonging and connection. So in the agenda there's a whole host of ideas. I've been criticised on a number of occasions that I don't bring ideas and plans, but the point of what I try to do is to create space for other people to come in and input ideas. I'm not here to drive the process, I'm here to collaborate with others. And that is demonstrated by the fact I've hosted community meetings on a range of different topics, including this one, to invite discussion where council hasn't been so forward thinking. Communities are thinking of ways to build better ideas and better spaces for the future. So we acknowledged in the community meeting that this is a long-term project, but we would like to collaborate with the council to achieve that. We could have went through other avenues, but the way to test an idea is through public discussion and debate and laying it all out there and seeing what other people have to say. That's all I have to say, but I look forward to any other comments from the gallery. And
thank you, Mr. Hutchison. Are there any further speakers around the council table or from the gallery, either for or against? Councillor Roberts.
Look, I just want to point out here that, look, I'm a bit of a local to that way. I grew up a fair bit at Moyalla, so I know what it's like to grow up a bit in a small, rural, isolated place, and absolutely, it can be difficult out that way, especially with the Moyalla cricket ground no longer operating sports. A lot of the old halls have been sold up or closed down. So I really like this motion is that it is about the feasibility of and the potential. So as a councillor, I actually really would like to perhaps look of something like this for communities. 10 people is actually coincidentally one less person than Sisters Beach has as a population. So it goes to show the amount of people that are actually out that way, and I hope we do something to maybe perhaps look at the potential, especially considering we're looking at the Somerset Sports Precinct at the moment, the Wynyard Sports Precinct as well. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any speakers against the motion? Mr. Ewington.
Yes, Madam Chairman. Over the years, there's been many halls closed, unfortunately, but the economics of it is getting too costly because working committees can't raise the finance to keep them going. And it's unfortunately that has happened. Once the hall closes, it destroys the community. But the cost of keeping it going, it's a huge cost for the council to do that. We've got many good halls and community centres in the town area that people can use and take advantage of. Morley Halls is surviving, but it can. I would like to see a little bit of money spent on it just to keep it in a good state, but and not let it fold, because there is a strong committee out there trying to keep it alive. But as far as building a new complex, I feel you won't get the support to once it's up and going to make it financial, and unfortunately it won't happen. But there's many complexes in Wynyard and Somerset that can be used for groups to participate, and I think that's a better way of going for the economics of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Ewington. Councillor Edwards, Deputy Mayor Edwards.
I just had a question, please. To do a feasibility study in point 1, how much would council be looking at for that, please?
Through you, Mayor, look, it's a difficult one to answer because there's so many different, scenarios to it. But you can do an in-house feasibility study, which costs time and resource of officers. Now, typically, work of this nature, we wouldn't have necessarily staff time available and allocated to that. So the most likely scenario, you would engage a consultant or contractor to potentially do some of that work, and ultimately that depends on the scope and the nature and what you're asking for as part of the report, and could cost anywhere from 20,000 to 100,000, depending on the scope that you ask for.
Whoops, sorry. Thank you, Mr Crawford. Councillor Bramage.
Yeah, I'm going to speak against the motion. Putting the hall at the crossroads Pages Road. Couldn't think of an unsafer place if we tried. That's a bad intersection now, without creating more traffic. I hope you consulted with the people in the House that maybe you was putting this motion forward so they could have a bit of forewarning of what you was planning on doing. But touching on what Mr Ewington said, a lot of these little communities had halls once. They had a lot more people living in them too. There's a lot more farms, but the farms have dwindled down and bigger farms have bought the little farms. And you got less people. Look, we got motor cars. Look, we're going to have to sacrifice a bit this day and age. We're going to have to drive a few kilometres to do something. We can't have everything at our hand and foot. Look, I like the way you do it. You get your ideas. But come on, we've got to be practical about it. And look, I encourage you, Mr Hutchison, to come in instead of making a pathway for people to come in and follow through with it. It'd be good to have you. What have I done now?
I don't accept. I don't accept your point of order. Could you please continue? Could you please continue, Councillor Bramage?
Look, I encourage you to come on some of these groups and work through with some of these things, because you've got some good ideas at times. Look, I better stop. I'll be called a grumpy old man, won't I?
Thank you, Councillor Bramage. Councillor Raw.
Just a couple of clarification questions for Cody. How many people came to the meeting on December the 14th at the hall? About 12. And so then what was presented to us here in our documents, you put the what and the why and the possible use ideas, so your ideas were there. Did the group of people that were there come up with any other ideas or further ideas?
So in the background information...
Excuse me, Mayor. Thanks, Cody.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Edwards.
The ideas that were generated from those discussions are reflected in the initial community-led community consultation section of the agenda. Where it's italicised is my commentary, which sort of comes from what I had to share and discussions that were around that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hutchison. Are there any further speakers to this motion or against this motion from the gallery or around the council table? Councillor Hyland.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, just along the lines of Councillor Bramage, I think once upon a time Wynyard used to have a hospital, and for obvious economic reasons we now have to drive 20 k's to Burnie, and that's been happening for a number of years, and it's just same as Prialina. It was a thriving little farming community once upon a time, but you know, those things, they just sort of roll on, people move on, and we have to just seriously consider what we need to do for those small communities. We're down to the Morley Hall now. I may be corrected by the GM, but any request that comes in from that Morley Hall in regard to any maintenance, I think they don't have any trouble in council supporting that. I think that's how it's been for quite a number of years now. They still have quite a few functions, and I notice on page 14, there's a list of social, sports and other activities. Majority of those could be conducted in that Morley Hall, apart from the indoor volleyball, indoor cricket, netball, but there's quite a few of those sports that we don't even, we cannot accommodate even in Wynyard. But we're working towards that with our sporting precinct, so it's, you know, 10-minute drive into Wynyard. Why would we even consider another huge stadium, which is going to cost a lot of dollars, when we can do what we're doing, particularly with the Wynyard High School, including that in the sporting precinct? The students are going to benefit greatly by the work that we're doing over there, and that's all working with the state government. Yeah, it's just you just got to consider the economics of the whole project, and I just cannot support that in its form, in its current form.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Mr Higgins, you wish to make a comment?
I'd just like to point out yet again that this is about undertaking a feasibility study, preparing a cost-benefit report, and presenting a final feasibility. Again, we're not saying build us a sports centre now. What we're asking for is for somebody to go out and say, what do we need out in that spot, and how much will it cost, and can we afford it, and should we do it? That's what we're asking for. We're not saying this is what we want, we need you to build it, and this is the plan for it, and this is what we're going to do with it. We just want the feasibility study so that we can again move forward with a step towards something that might actually be feasible and useful for people. Build it and they will come.
Thank you, Mr Higgins. Are there any further speakers for or against? You've already spoken, Councillor Hyland.
I had a question, but I'm just not sure.
A question to...
well, Cody, perhaps he might delegate it. But on 2 or 3 of the other motions so far, there's a reference made that council do this. I'm just not sure or understand what council is supposed to do. And if council's got to do something, it's going to cost money. Someone's got to pay.
So your question.
Yeah, question is, is there anyone else that is going to do something or get some things done other than the request continually coming to council?
To whom are you, Councillor Hyland, to whom are you directing this question, please?
I'll take that as a comment.
Yeah, to Cody.
Mr Hutchison, would you like to respond?
I would be more than willing to join a working group or a stakeholder group for this project, Councillor Hyland, and you can quote me because that's on record now, and if it progresses beyond the feasibility and concept stage, I'm happy to be part of that process, and if I'm required to be or invited to be part of that process in that time, or helping engage community members, I'm more than willing to do that. I guess in response to criticisms in the past where I haven't joined working groups is because I've had a very interesting relationship with council, and I don't really want to be the person that has to have continuous debates with council management. So
if there's other people that would like to do those jobs, then I'm more than happy to make space for them. But if there's not, and council is willing to work collaboratively and consider the ideas and not just throw them in the dustbin because of the economics, which I've talked at length about, then I'm more than happy to engage in dialogue.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison.
Can you join the working group too?
Councillor Hyland. Mr. Hutchison, I'm going to ask you to wind up this particular debate and summarise all of the comments that have been made that are germane to your motion.
Would you allow me to ask one question? Just only one, only a little one.
I've actually closed the debate.
I'll be quick. Sorry. The costing for a feasibility study, did I hear right, could be up to 20,000 to 100,000?
Okay, the question's been asked. Mr. Hutchison, would you please summarise?
Yep. Yeah, I'm not aware of the costs, but Chair Manager given an answer before. So I guess I'd just like to thank other people that have contributed to the discussion. What we are asking for is some support from council to explore this idea. That's all we're doing, and I thank Mr. Higgins for detailing that more eloquently than I could. So thank you for everyone's comments, and I'd appreciate your support for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call for a division on this particular motion. So, Mr. Summers, if you could count the hands that are raised that support this motion. So, those that support the motion, could you please raise your hands? (15). Those that are against the motion? 14. The motion has been passed. Moving on to 8.4, Mr. Hutchison again, Council Amalgamation Survey. If you would come forward and propose your motion.
I believe the council's response in the agenda is helpful in guiding the situation. I acknowledge that there were comments before about the general manager and the work and the effort that this council put into making those submissions. I did ask some questions around what level of community consultation was done prior to making those submissions, and the response I got was there was not a whole heap of direct consultation that this council did with the community, and especially with Waratah, which was one of the proposals. Part of the proposal that the council put forward is that Waratah actually be part of the West Coast
Mr. Hutchison,
Council.
can you just hold a moment? I need a seconder for your motion.
I'll second it.
Please continue, Mr. Hutchison.
So Waratah was not directly consulted about this proposal to basically place Waratah in the municipal region of the West Coast, and I know that was the West Coast Council's position, so I'm guessing there was some dialogue between management of those councils, and if not, it was a good coincidence, but the idea that the community wasn't consulted about the response initially made me feel a little bit uneasy. So this is why I'm putting this proposal here. I won't read through it all. It's in the agenda and summaries that I've printed out for people. But basically, point 1 is conduct a municipal-wide online survey of Waratah Wynyard residents, asking the following question. Do you support combining the Waratah Wynyard municipality with the Circular Head municipality to make a different municipal area and establish a new council?
with 3 very basic responses: yes, no, or undecided, just so that council has a baseline of data to proceed with its submissions around that idea of bringing together resource shared councils into a more formal arrangement of consolidation and amalgamation. The rest of it of the motion steps out the process that could go through. So my argument is that council should have consulted the community in the first instance, but I understand there was timeframes and timelines around that, so we're going to try and bring that in now, and see if we as the community can feel heard and feel listened to on this, and which side of the fence or that particular proposal you're on doesn't necessarily matter, but the fact that the community is asked, I think, is a priority for this council. I know it's a priority for me as a community member, and there were meetings held in Wynyard around local government reform, and people had some interesting things to share about that. I know some councillors from this council were in attendance of that meeting, so some ideas were potentially relayed back to council, but giving people a direct opportunity to be surveyed prior to any formal polls that might happen down the track, I think is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. Are there any further speakers for or against this motion, please? Councillor Courtney.
Really sorry, but I'm actually against this motion. I think until we get the report back from the local government to see what they're saying to our council about what they think we should do, we shouldn't go out and speak to the community and talk to them about amalgamations that may not take place if they've got other ideas they're putting to us. I think that until that comes back from the local government and from the state government, we don't know what we're going to put out to the community, because they might suggest something that's not this. So I just think that may be a better opportunity for this to come up next year after we've got the feedback from the local government, and we can see what they're suggesting to us and our response to them, and then have a look at what the community feel about what the local government has sent back to us and our response to that. So I just think this is probably a little bit early for this one, but that's just me.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. I think you mean the state government's response back to us. Thank you. Are there any further speakers, please? Mr. Spears, would you like to ask a question?
Can the General Manager outline what the Council's planned consultation is once the local state government gets the report back, please?
Through you, Mayor. Council hasn't got a formal position, but the local government, future local government report, the final report has been released and was released in December. Council has until the end of February to put in a submission in relation to that final report. What that particular report suggests is that Council work with a community group, if you like, so community representatives, and work up a proposed position that we submit to the government essentially by the end of the year. So a position around future structure, and equally a position around resource sharing or shared services is the other part to it. That report then goes on to say that subsequently in 2025 there would be a formal community vote around acceptance or otherwise of a position that is put forward to the community to vote on. I don't necessarily disagree with the point raised by Mr. Hutchison, in fact, in that some early indication from the community around what their views are on this subject I think would be beneficial. There has been, I do disagree with the point where he says no consultation has been undertaken. There's been quite an extensive process that's been made available by the Local Government Division and Local Government Board, calling for community submissions into this process throughout the whole entire process. It is very difficult to engage with the community in this line, and there has there has been very little response. So I think it is indeed accurate to say it is difficult for us to know where the community sits on this, and I think some indication from the community around their views. But having said that, you need something to go to the community to put to them, and when is the right time to do that? I certainly don't believe that before the end of February is appropriate, because again, at that point in time we may not even have put our submission into the final stage, so we need to at least get that done. And I certainly think the questions as proposed are perhaps too restrictive. There may be other opportunities and other items to use as part of that process. So I think the intent and the sentiment around getting further community engagement involvement is fine, but I think the detail as provided in the motion creates some problems for council.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Roberts.
Look, I just want to put this in perspective, really, that you know, the state government hasn't really been too kind to us during this process, and our turnaround's been rather limited. Our lack of understanding the information been limited because we only had such a short time to actually look at the information. I would encourage everyone in our community, everyone in our municipal region to go online and actually have a look at the findings of these reports. They are integral to the future of our region, to know which direction that we will be taking. I'd like to remind people this isn't something that we are voluntarily just deciding that we will do. This is something that every single municipal region will be facing in this state, and I actually credit both Waratah Wynyard Council and Circular Head Council being open and willing to discuss all dialogue and options about potential way forwards that will benefit our communities. And I do think that we understand the benefit that because people haven't reciprocated very well with state government on this, that it gives us as a small regional council the ability to go to the council, to the state government with some form of leverage and bargaining power at that table. So I think it's important that we just point out to the community here that we're not trying to do anything without their knowledge, or we're not trying to not inform them. In fact, our council ourselves has asked for clearer lines of communication from state government in regards to these things, because we would like to be able to communicate better with our constituents. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any further speakers? If not, Mr. Hutchison, would you please summarise and close the debate?
Yeah, I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I now ask the Mr. Summers and Ms. Morwood to undertake the counting of the votes for this particular motion. So if you could raise your hands, those in favour of this motion. Seven. Against, if you could raise your hands. Sorry? 17. The motion is lost. Mr. Hutchison, you have another motion, a very lengthy motion that you have proposed here. Improve council meeting procedures. Would you please come forward and put forward your motion? Sorry? Oh, sorry, I've leapt ahead. I must be in a hurry. Mr. Hutchison, you can propose your motion for the vineyard. Thank you.
Yeah, we're all in a hurry at this point. All right, so the motion is that council rename the Waratah Wynyard Council managed Wynyard Waste Transfer Station located at 170 Goldie Street, Wynyard, to the Wynyard Vineyard, and update all on-site signage to reflect the name change outlined in 1 using funds in the 2024-2025 budget, and 3 update all relevant council policies to reflect the name change outlined in 1.
Could I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Roberts. Mr. Hutchison, would you please open the debate?
Yeah, so I've had a bit of feedback on this from sharing the fact that this is going to be voted on at tonight's AGM. I was asked to outline some of the benefits and the potential costs. So from my point of view, the benefits are creating an iconic name, further enhancing the attractiveness of using the site to dispose of waste, community engagement opportunities, empowering community to take pride in ownership of public services, encouraging additional resource recovery and local recycling opportunities. Council's waste and resource recovery strategy might talk further about some of those points. Some of the costs involved would be staff labour to adjust the relevant policies, and assign rider material, labour, installation and achieving a contract to update that. For the few small signs that are on site, there's a potential that updated signs can simply overlay the existing signage if all the other information remained the same, to cut down on costs in that. But I won't presume that the process, once it goes in the hands of councillors, if it gets that far. So I guess in the background to this information, I've kept it quite straightforward. This is an opportunity to have a bit of fun with language, and there's a chance for the community to explore other avenues for naming some of the community facilities that have generic names, and this is one that I've come up with in past conversations and thoughts. So the fact that Wynyard rhymes with Binyard and we have a waste transfer station, it just makes sense. So I've talked about the definition of a bin, the definition of a yard, and that describes the waste transfer station to a T. So the waste transfer station, the language around that is not even that clear. But the place name itself is adequate, but I see this as an exciting opportunity to give our area a bit of a dynamic edge, a bit of a talking point for the community. Council has recently changed the contract from the past contractor to the new contractor, which is Launceston City Mission. So there's been change on that front. There's been change to free waste disposal for local residents. So I believe council is on the forefront with creating a space that community can use and appreciate and take ownership over. And what better way to continue that progress, to give it a unique name, something interesting that can reflect this area. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I think this is thinking that will potentially drive further thinking in spaces around our community. And if we can go through this process, who knows where it could lead after that point, and there are risks associated with that. So it's about the public assessing the value of changing the name of a facility or a space or a hall or whatever versus the potential issues that might crop up. And I can't see any issues that would arise out of this, only giving some good public relations to both the council and the broader community, and even pulling residents from other municipalities to take advantage of our waste disposal facilities. So I'm asking for support in this motion. I know it's a bit out there, but for those people that know me, know that in my personal life there are some things where you have to explore and invent and create, and I really like the opportunities that are available to us as a community. So I'm asking you for your support on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. Deputy Mayor Edwards.
Well, I just love the idea, but I think I won't support it, sorry. But I just love, just hearing you talk about it. Where am I? So, I've had some people that I've talked to in the community, some feedback, and they said that's a bit weird. And another person said wasting council resources, time, signage, and then for my thought, just then while we were talking about the vineyard, we'd have to come up with a theme song for the Wynyard vineyard, like chicken feed. So I think that would be a real goer. So yeah, but I think what I've noticed in the points 1, 2 and 3, it says rename the Waratah Wynyard Council Managed Waste Transfer Station, but it's got nowhere in there for no community feedback to see how they would feel about it. So I won't support the motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Edwards. Councillor Roberts.
I just quickly want to say, while I voted against the last motion, Mr Hutchison, it wasn't because I disagree with the intent, it was because of the timeline implications and the limited time we have ourselves. In regards to this one, I'm sort of half and half, because I will actually be voting against this motion because of the short notice, lack of consultation, but I do really genuinely love the idea about using linguistic tools to actually create connection to certain areas, and I do think that should we maybe perhaps even present to the community to come up with some ideas for local areas of attraction would be a good way perhaps to consult and meet in the middle. So there's my reasoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Rule.
Yeah, Cody has mentioned that the signage wouldn't be much signage and the name would be cheap. I wonder, General Manager, could give us any idea, knowing all that sits behind, how much a change of name would cost the council? Because I think it would be more extensive than just change a few signs.
Just if you can give us a response or not.
Yeah, look, it is very difficult. And I'm not even sure, so that it's not just, I guess, signage changes that would need to be made. Clearly there's, I guess, the other directional signage that would need to be sorted through. There would be branding information that would need to be sorted through. I think one of the important points to raise that hasn't been discussed equally is for new residents around the relevance of the name and their ability to identify what the centre is. An accepted term and accepted practice that across the state that transfer stations is the name or the tip. That's what they're called, and that's where people know that when they come to a new area, that's where they go to. I'm not quite sure that with the name as proposed that it has that same relevance, nor will people be able to identify as to what that may be. Vineyard has a very different connotation to what a transfer station or tip does. So I think I haven't really answered your question because I genuinely don't know what the cost may be. But yeah, look, it could be in the vicinity of $10,000. I would think $5,000 to $10,000, possibly. Had a guess.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Mr. Walsh.
I don't know if I misunderstood him, but he said in his last few words, and the other councils might come along with us, and they're going to deliver their rubbish over here.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Councillor Courtney, are you wishing to speak, or Councillor Bramage? Councillor Courtney.
Like Deputy Mayor Edwards and Councillor Roberts, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that, it's one of those things, if we put it out to the community, we'll probably get Tippy McTipface as the number one name. So I don't think it's a bad idea to put the proposal forward, but I don't like the idea we haven't consulted on the community before we decide it. So if we sit here and decide it tonight, I think that's unreasonable. I think we should go out to the community with it and hopefully not get Tippy McTipface as a suggested name for it.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Hyland.
Yes, obviously a name like that will eventually grow on you if you hang it out there and see what the community feel. But the waste, I'm just not sure how you can't not connect the transfer station, and particularly when the word waste is in front of it. And the General Manager spoke about new residents. Well, once they see the word waste, they know exactly what it takes. Every bit of waste that you can take. Pretty simple. stick with what's working.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Are there any Councillor Bramage?
Thank you. Well, Cody, I've got to give you credit. You are a thinker, mate. It sounds good. Wynyard's got a vineyard. Yep, it sounds good. But I'm along with it like the others. I don't think it's probably practical at this stage. But you probably like me, don't sleep much of at night and have a lot of thoughts. Good on you.
Thank you, Councillor Bramage. Are there any further speakers? Ms Robinson.
Maybe not as the waster, but maybe just to, like they've got the rabbit hutch down at Burnie, maybe if we just put a sign up and it'll catch on with everybody anyway, and we'll call it the Wynyard Bin Hut.
Thank you for that. Are there any further speakers? If not, I ask Mr Hutchison to close the debate.
Thank you for comments made. Yeah, I guess this is what putting forward a motion is about. It's if you think it's a good idea, then supporting it is not necessarily mutually exclusive from consulting the community. So if it's supported tonight, councillors can go ahead and amend the motion to develop a consultation plan or process on the name idea in the meeting. So councillors have the ultimate power for all council policies and procedures and what it does. If the electors in the room support it, that doesn't mean the community won't be consulted. So the fact that it doesn't have a consultation element in the proposal doesn't mean the community can't be consulted. So I would encourage or urge people that spoke against it to consider the future possibilities of this idea and to potentially, as Councillor Roberts said, put out some ideas, but as with that process, you do get potential namings of objects or places that council might not be able to control at that point. So this is in my mind, a logical idea, just because of the rhyming potential. So I appreciate the sentiment that there is an appreciation of the idea, but I think at this point, to appreciate the idea and then reject the motion when councillors have the ability to change it now and both in future instances and determine that process for a potential name change, I think it's a bit of a slap in the face, and I don't want to bring the energy down because it has been comical to hear reflections on this idea from people that I don't interact with in everyday situations. So it's great to get that feedback, but to vote against an idea when there is power to consult the community over the proposed changes, I feel a little bit disrespected in that sense. So I would like to encourage those people that spoke against it to consider supporting it and to begin a process, and maybe there is a possibility to just put a sign up and see where it goes, but I don't feel like that's respecting the council processes, and whilst it'd be fun to engage with and do, I feel like a genuine name change would create I guess that culture around the council is listening to the community. It does take on new and fresh ideas, and it does think outside the box. And I think if councillors can consider those points, I think we can work together as a collaborative community, and not just this divide of the governed and the governors. So it's about bringing people together, bringing ideas, and communicating to the community that your idea will be heard and considered as well. So this, in a way, is a bit of a test. These motions are all a test to say, what do you think? Will you listen? And can you think about what the community has to say in a situation where we do have voting power? So this is what these motions and this particular motion are about for me. So I encourage electors to vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. I'm going to now ask for a division in the vote. Mr. Summers, if you could count those hands that for this particular motion. So those in favour, please raise your hands. Those that are against the motion, could you raise your hands? $15. 16. Thank you. The motion is lost. Now we come to the very lengthy motion now put forward, 8.6. Mr. Hutchison, improve council meeting procedures. If you would come forward and put forward your motion.
Yes, I'll move the motion that Council increase formal public voting opportunities and enhance democratic principles in public motions by improving council meeting procedures to A, allow public motions, so motions introduced by members of the public and voted on by members of the public, in 3 monthly ordinary council meetings of the Waratah Wynyard Council. B, require electors voting on a public motion to stand in designated areas to indicate their vote on that particular motion. On that public motion, sorry. And 2, modify specific sections in the existing council meeting procedures policy and insert a list of clauses which in the agenda I've outlined, but I won't read through that.
If I could have a seconder to that motion.
I'll second it.
Councillor Roberts, please go.
So I guess the idea of this motion, and it's probably one of the most important motions for me personally tonight, but it's about giving community members an opportunity to bring ideas in this format in multiple points during the year, so that we don't have to sit for many hours. We can spread those ideas that the community has in this format across those motions. So I've gone ahead and looked at the council meeting procedures and put in opportunities for to submit motions in ordinary council meetings, and a particular section around when public motions are called on to vote. You actually have the option, the chairperson has the option to require members of the public that are taking part in the vote to go to one side of the room or the other, depending on what the vote is. So this is a parliamentary practice, and it allows for when there's lots of people in a vote to sort of get a general idea of how many people are on one side and how many people on the other side. So if there's confusion, and tonight there's sort of been votes that are sort of very close, so if there's confusion, it can eliminate that confusion where people are on either side of the room, and it's okay for numbers of this size, but if there was a public gallery of 50 people or 100 people, sometimes counting hands is a slow, ineffective way. So the first point there is public can introduce motions at any point during, at 3 additional points during the year, as well as the annual general meeting. and in that process of voting, there can be a physical division, which is a state government practice and a federal government practice. So it's about improving democracy in local spaces when the public has a chance to vote. So when councillors vote, it's very easy to decide to determine who's for and who's against, because there's only a small number of individuals or councillors. But when you get bigger groups, this is a more efficient practice. So just to summarise some of the comments, under the current Local Government Act 1993, this is page 26 of the agenda, motions by members of the public are permitted to be included in the annual general meeting of all local councils. So this is section 72B of the Act. This empowers members of the public to bring suggestions directly to a local council to be decided then and there at an annual general meeting. So everything that we've been doing tonight. Members of the public who are electors in the municipality are entitled to vote on these motions. Motion is successful, it's taken to the next ordinary general meeting to be debated and voted on by councillors only. So the intent of the motion is to increase community participation and involvement in decision making. Instead of only having one opportunity per year, the number of opportunities to introduce public motions and vote on public motions can be increased a further 3 times. So as an example, it could be that we have the opportunity to introduce public motions in the February, May and August council meetings. Whether or not there's an appetite for members of the public to introduce public motions will, I guess, be dependent on future instances, but as someone that studies these topics quite in depth, I think as time goes on and as individuals get more involved in decision making and political discussions and debates, they will be looking for avenues to put forward their ideas independently of a representative and speak to those in the same way that there's been opportunities to do tonight. Just bear with me for a moment. I will briefly just respond to a couple of officer comments. Community members have numerous ways in which they can present ideas to council outside motions at annual general meeting. Council meeting procedures allow for public statements and questions at each council meeting. Council has working groups, community conversations, and a significant number of engagement and consultation processes. Those things are all great aspects of interacting with council, but they have their limits, and sometimes if you have an idea or present the idea, sometimes that's as far as they will go. They don't actually get cut through to members of the council, so elected representatives or staff. So whilst theoretically elected representatives are there to listen and represent, and council staff are there to listen and take feedback, sometimes that isn't the case. So in order for people to put their ideas out there and actually test if the community thinks it's a good idea or not, sometimes there needs to be other avenues, and I think as demonstrated by tonight's process, that where anyone can introduce a public motion and it have the discussion in a public format where everyone can see what's going on and have access to the same information, I think that's an additional positive process that improves local decision making and democracy, in my view. So I'll summarise by saying that the essence of the motion is that people must be empowered to represent themselves where possible, not only have elected representatives. A councillor under the public motion proposal will still have the same level of voting power to say no or to say yes at an ordinary council meeting. So if any public motion is successfully passed by electors in the meeting beforehand, it sort of contradicts what has been said in the officer's response, that adding more frequent opportunity diminishes the role of the elected official. I think it actually enhances the role of the elected official, because there would be potentially more ideas, serious ideas, presented to councillors to deliberate over, instead of a councillor effectively being the editor and controlling what ideas go to council. The members of the community don't have to wait for elected representatives to act on a particular idea. A member of the public can introduce it, and it can go the way of a public vote. So I would ask that this motion in its current form be given some serious consideration, because I have thought about it for a number of months, and how it would impact this council, and I feel like the impact will be negligible, but the opportunities will be substantial, because councillors at the end of the day will have the final say, that the public will be given a higher level of say, and I think this can only be a good thing for the community, the ratepayers and the residents. If councillors disagree with that, I think they need to check their priorities and why they are in their position, because in my view, councillors are there elected by the community to represent the community, and if you're going to vote against the community having a say in a more formal way, then why are you here? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor Dunniam. Look, I actually I agree that we should constantly and consistently look at improving every aspect of council, especially our engagement with the community. I definitely feel that is... myself and Councillor Courtney voted against the change in the meeting procedures, and we also spoke out publicly against it as well, so to show you where my perspective is of it. But I do think that one thing that is overlooked is that each one of us councillors ran in a democratic election, as was our right. And each one of us were fairly and democratically elected to speak on behalf of the other members of our community. Now, I understand that perhaps we might not each individually get things right every time, and we might not as a group get things right every time, but I do truly believe, and I truly believe this, that whether we see eye to eye, that each person up here does truly believe and is here with the right intent to do right by their community, and that we just see it a little bit differently, each of us. Now, I would encourage anyone from our community at the next election to run for council, and if they feel like they would like to be up here and have responsibility and speak on behalf of these issues, then they have every democratic right just like anyone else. Now, if they don't get elected, that's something that they will have to deal with, and understand that you know, that members of the community might see things a little bit differently from them as well. So whilst agreeing that the community should have more say, and I definitely do agree that, I do agree that we must consistently look at this, but I do think that those members of the community that want to put forth motions have the opportunity to run for council. And so every 4 years, that's right. So again, that would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any further speakers, please? Councillor Johnson.
I'm going to vote against the motion. One fact, I've been, I'll say, in this council for probably just over a little bit of 12 months now, and in the gallery and the community, you've got every opportunity to come once every month to view our council meeting, and I could honestly say, other than if you're handing out flyers or anything like that, in the gallery, there's probably only been 2 to 3 people at our council meetings. So therefore, the option, or say the option is there for the community to come and vote, but yet they're not. So, yeah, it's just a little bit interesting to me, so I'm going to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Courtney.
Firstly, credit to you, Mr. Hutchinson. Your research and your writing on that are above a standard. I can understand why you ran for Legislative Council, and I hope you do again. I think there's a lot of problems with a state government regulations, and I personally have problems with the local government rules. I think that some of them don't allow the community to engage properly. But I think we need to note the officer's first sentence, the first response, is that neither the Local Government Act nor the Local Government Meeting Procedure Regulations provide for or allow for the public to present motions at council meetings. And that's what we're bound by. So as much as I'd like to say, yes, I think this is a really good idea, which I do, and it has merit, which I do, that's the rule. So I don't think that we can actually vote against what the regulations and the standards are. That's got to go back to the state government to look at the local government changes. That can't come to this council and for us to make rules that are outside the regulations that everybody else abides by.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Are there any further speakers, please? From the gallery, are there any further speakers? If there are, Councillor Hyland.
It's a tall order to change rules and regulations, and probably one of the big key aspects of all that is to get yourself on council. You've got to be prepared to work with a team, as a team, to get results if you wish to change rules and regulations. And that goes for pretty much anything around here. And as you've seen and heard, the way this council's operated over the last 8 or 9 years, at a lot of meetings during that 8 or 9 years, the councillors around this table have obviously agreed more times than they've disagreed to get us into a position where we are. And that's one of the key things in being part of a council. You've got to work with everybody, and rules and regulations, you spend 15 years trying to change that. The effort you've got to go through, unless you can get people on board, on your side. It's as simple as that. But I just can't bring myself to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Are there any further speakers, please? If not, I'm going to call for a division in the vote. Mr. Summers, if you could count the those that's... Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't allow Mr. Hutchison to sum up. My apologies.
Just summarise. In the annual report, under the values of respect, Council says people are heard, valued and respected. Under leadership and governance, we encourage broad community input to create a focused and strong sense of belonging. Under connected communities, we listen and engage with our community in decision making, and our community uses its voice to shape its future alongside a strong council willing to listen and implement where reasonable and practical. So these are in council documents in tonight's annual report. So I understand if this idea is a little bit threatening to the power that councillors have, and because they've been democratically elected, they don't want anyone else to have any voice. But actually the organisation that you were elected to, councillors, is actually an organisation that does these things, listens and engages, encourages community to use its voice and shape its future. So what I'm proposing is not a change of the rules or regulations. I'm proposing a change of council meeting procedures policy, which is very much in the domain of what we can change, because only less than a year ago council changed its meeting procedures policies. So councillors can change meeting procedure policies, and councillors will have the ultimate vote at the next meeting on this issue if it's carried by a majority of electors. So we're not changing state legislation, but we are changing council meeting procedures, which can be changed. So I just can't understand that line of argument. The Local Government Act and the Local Government Meeting Procedures regulations do actually have provisions for the council and the mayor to determine different things in relation to how a meeting takes place. All this is doing is formalising a way for community to have a public motion section in an ordinary general meeting up to 3 times a year. So at an AGM, it's the mayor or the chairperson decides if there are any additional procedures to be followed for that particular meeting. And it was stated earlier tonight that council for this AGM is following its normal council meeting procedures. So within the AGM, there's flexibility, autonomy by a local council to decide how its meetings run within the rules and regulations. What is proposed is not outside of the rules or regulations that are in the Local Government Act or the regulations. So there is that flexibility to include those in here. I would just encourage people that spoke against it, and anyone that might be thinking about voting against it, to consider what is being voted on here, and that is the idea that community is going to have more opportunities to present ideas. If councillors and members of the public are going to say no to that, you are essentially voting against the community having those opportunities throughout the year. There are still all the chances that community members have to engage with elected officials, with council staff. It doesn't take away from those processes, so people that want to do that can, but it allows for people to bring motions into the council meeting space where the decisions actually happen, or at least sort of happen. Most of them happen behind closed doors and then just get rubber stamped at a council meeting, but that's another debate. The council meeting is the place where the power lies, and the community understands that, and maybe the reason why they don't attend Councillor Johnson is because they don't feel empowered. They don't actually have a say, and every time they go and ask questions or speak on statements of personal or council-related affairs, they actually get disrespected. I know I felt that, and I know speaking to a number of other community members have been in similar situations in the past as well. So I would like electors tonight to support this motion to give community. Do you want to say that out loud, Councillor Hyland? I would ask that councillors and electors in the room support this to get more opportunities for the public to raise their ideas. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hutchison. I will note one of your comments that you made in summing up, that decisions are made behind closed doors and then brought to council meetings for final decision. If you have any evidence of that, I do suggest that you present that evidence and see if you can change that situation, because in my experience of 18 years, we have not made decisions behind closed doors. We may be informed of what we need to know to make those decisions, but the decisions are made around the council table. So if you are making an allegation, an unfounded allegation at that, I suggest you go to the Division of Local Government, the Ombudsman, the Commission, the Minister for Local Government, and I'm sure that those people will listen to your complaints. I'm now going to call for a division for this vote. I'm sorry, Mr. Summers, I called you earlier. For those who support this motion, please raise your hands. Nine. Those against, please raise your hands. Nine. The motion is lost. Thank you. Now, at last, Dr. Crabber, here is your opportunity to present your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. So I would like to propose the following motion, that the Waratah Wynyard Council consider the establishment of a social and community activation panel. So there's a number of possible names.
Can I just ask for a seconder before you go?
Seconded.
Councillor Roberts has seconded this motion. You have the floor, Dr. Crabber.
Thank you. So there's a number of possible names for the group, and I'll hereafter use the acronym CAP, which could be Community Activation or Community Advisory Panel. So it would be a model based on the same model as the Sustainability and Environmental Advisory Panel, SEEP, which the General Manager mentioned previously is a very successful model. And the CAP would be to help advance the Council's health and wellbeing plan, the youth plan and the age-friendly plan, which we know there is difficulty resourcing those plans at the moment. The SEEP has been very successful to date in activating a passionate group of people with the capacity to advance the integrated council environmental plan. I contend a CAP could also be a very effective way of achieving a range of much needed social and community outcomes for the Waratah Wynyard municipality. So the CAP does not have to be as large as the SEEP, but the size could be determined by the number of people with the relevant skills who nominate. However, a larger number does have the advantage of making it more possible to form working groups, which have been successfully done in the case of the SEEP. Working groups could be formed around each plan, e.g. health and wellbeing, youth and the aged. So we know there's a huge social and economic unmet need, including a relatively high level of disadvantage in our municipality, whereby an advisory panel would have a huge advantages in building community capacity to address those needs. A major aspect crucial to the success of the SEEP is that it is based on dialogue. It is through dialogue that we grow sensitive to multiple realities and learn to negotiate across diverse relationships and realities. Fostering an ongoing dialogical culture promotes transformative action. It supports attending to what we take for granted, noticing what others notice that would otherwise be invisible to us, and opening pathways, exploring new opportunities and possibilities. Dialogue can thus be the basis for making a difference in our community. So I call for Council to consider convening this panel to promote the dialogue we need for our community to flourish into the future.
Thank you, Dr. Crabber. Are there any further speakers from the gallery or the council? Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. Are there any further speakers? Any speakers for or against? Councillor Roberts.
Look, I just want to state that this is, like, number one, Dr. Crabber, I appreciate everything you do in our community. You do an amazing job, both yourself and Live Well and everyone that is involved in all those projects. I think that this is a wonderful idea. I think that this is absolutely something that is needed, and as we've seen with the SEEP committee, the amount of progress that's come out of that group is amazing. So I actually agree completely that we do need this, and I also agree with the council that we should actually just consider prior to the establishment of this group what exactly it's for, what the process is, etc. So I'm sort of in the middle of it. We definitely need it, and I would hope that we could come to some kind of understanding of what the next step is. So I'm actually going to support it with that intent, Dr. Crabber. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any further speakers, please? Councillor Raw.
Just, Robin, a clarification question. I really like the use of dialogue, and I firmly believe too that dialogue is an incredible way to go when working with groups of people. But you're asking the council to form the panel, so it says determined by the number. The size could be determined by the number of people with the relevant skills. Can you give us an idea of what sort of relevant skills you are meaning, and does the council, if they set up the panel, come up with a list of relevant skills?
Yeah, well, thanks. With the seat process, it was a matter of sort of outlining your interest and your relevant skills for that group. So I would envisage it be a similar process for this. So it would be interest in the community, interest in social aspects, education, etc. And, preferably having some sort of experience in some area relevant to that. But to me, the main thing is having the passion for this type of work is really important, and the commitment to be able to contribute to the panel.
Thank you, Dr. Crabber. Are there any further questions or comments? Councillor Hyland.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just, congratulations, Dr. Crabbe, on what you're achieving across the road. And the fact that you're leading by example in everything you do, and all this sort of points to helping out of the needy in our community, which is very important. But in regard to the officer's comments, I'm just sort of wondering, forming another group sort of in 12 months, 18 months in the near future, given what's happening with our wellbeing plan and youth plan, age-friendly plan, which is due for renewal in 24-25, and then they've indicated that we're not real sure what's going to happen with the review, local government review. So there's a few little hurdles there, but it's obviously a good concept, and it's working well with what you're doing currently. So I'll think about that one.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Councillor Courtney.
I'd need some more information before I could support it, because the CAP committee was created with a very a targeted idea of what they were sort of being created for, that it was about meeting our environmental requirements, for state, for federal, for community. But I would need more information, because I'd like to know what social and community outcomes this group would be looking at that's outside of the current committees that we have. So I'd like to know what social and community areas this group would be looking at before I'd say, yes, we can form this group, because some of those things may be covered by some of our other committees, and some of those things may be outside of council's remit, because as the local government reform is reviewing, is what are core council duties. And it was roads, rates and rubbish, but now we've got childcare centres, and now we're, businesses that are managing 300 million worth of assets. So I'd like to know what the committee would be looking at before I say, yes, this is a committee that we should establish.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Yes. Could I have your name, please?
Tracy Jones.
Tracy.
I'd like some clarification, Madam Mayor. If this proposal is, if this motion is passed tonight, I think I heard it said earlier that at the next council meeting, the council will decide whether it goes ahead or not. So why would anybody vote against it tonight? No, and I'm speaking especially to the councillors who have already spoken against it or questioned what it's going to do, when all of that can be worked out at the the next council meeting when you guys get to say yay or nay.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah. So I am understanding the process correctly.
Yes, you are.
Good. So there's no reason why you can't vote for it tonight.
Thank you very much. Yes. Your name? Chris.
I'd just like to say I really support this. I think there are a lot of things happening in the area with people initiating, I guess, social and community events and things like that. But it's very ad hoc. So certainly council, I've found with the Community Activation Fund, has been very, very supportive. I think that this would be a very, very positive thing for council, because with the way the area is changing and looking at making the Waratah Wynyard area more inclusive, I think, and moving into the future, I think that, you know, as Cody was saying, this is another way to, in a way, get slightly more direct information about social and community issues in the area for council. And my question was, is there an existing social community committee, including residents?
You're asking the question.
Yes, I think so, because you alluded to existing
committees.
Yeah.
So we have youth committees, we have committees that do the community assistance, we do sporting and rec committees, we have working reserve committees. So we have a lot of committees that are already probably doing a lot of this work. So I'd like to know, if we're going to look at it, what specifically is this group for?
Well, I think it would be breaking down some of those barriers there that people are, I guess, being put in boxes. So, you know, if you've got youth, you've got aged, whatever, this would be a broad social community activation. So I'm, you know, looking at things like making sure that, I guess, council events are not featuring the same people year in, year out, that it's open to a lot of new community members and very talented people out there in the community. And also looking at the I guess, change to demographics that are happening in the area and the change in population. So you'd have people, I think, on a committee or a panel such as this that have really got, they're in touch with what's happening at the grassroots level. So thank you.
You very much for your input. Are there any further comments from the floor? Anyone wishes to speak against the motion? Councillor Hyland?
Question, Madam Chair, possibly to the GM. If this, given that the motion may not get up, is it in the early stages, is it possible for any queries or any statements coming out of that proposed group, could that come through SEEP or to council or not? No.
Yeah, through Mayor, I think the comments are correct that they would be two very separate groups. The SEEP group is absolutely there for environmental focused projects and matters, and this is a completely different area.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Are there any further comments? No further comments. Dr. Crabber, would you like to sum up for us, please?
Thank you. I contend firstly that this would not be a matter of duplication. I think there, from what I understand, there aren't any other groups that currently exist that, for example, are looking in depth at the health and wellbeing plan, of how to deliver more on the health and wellbeing plan. And the youth group, from what I understand, is not looking in depth at delivering parts of the youth plan. It's more about, well, the youth leaders anyway, more about engaging youth. But yeah, I strongly believe that this would not be duplication of resources. And like the first words of the mission of the Waratah Wynyard community is building our community. So the CAP is a perfect example of building our community, and this would remain a high priority regardless of the future of the local government review and the renewal of the Council's Health and Wellbeing Plan, Youth Plan and Age Friendly Plan in the 2024-25 financial year. In fact, the CAP should be the means by which priorities for these plans are identified, so about renewing those plans. For Council to say they engage with the community, they need to actively support processes like a CAP, particularly to help the most disadvantaged in our community. It is vital we seize all opportunities to work together to build capacity and mobilise the significant, valuable and very untapped resources we have in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Crabber. I'm going to call for a division. Mr. Summers, if you could count the hands in favour of this motion. Against, if you could raise your hands, those who do not support the motion. 2. Thank you. The motion has passed. Moving on to public questions without notice and public statements without notice. Excuse me. The Council encourages community participation in its meetings through the opportunity for public questions and statements. Consistent with Council's core values, councillors and staff strive to ensure all people are treated with respect and integrity. We expect our residents and ratepayers to apply similar standards in their dealings with Council. As Mayor, it is my responsibility to maintain the orderly conduct of Council meetings and to determine whether a question or statement is out of order due to the use of offensive, objectionable or defamatory expressions. I have 3 questions this evening that have been submitted. Mr. Spears, would you come forward, please?
Thank you, councillors. My question relates to the renumbering or possible renaming of a section of Walker Street. So basically, just wondering what council's currently considering the renumbering or renaming of the section of Walker Street that has been constructed as part of the new subdivision as part of the former Seabrook Golf Course land, and whether the council would consider possibly another name as opposed to renumbering the street, such as Seabrook Road Drive or similar, anything other than Walker Street or renumbering Walker Street, basically.
Thank you, Mr. Spears. I'll hand that question over to the General Manager.
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question. I think probably the easiest way to answer the question is to say that Council will have a report in relation to this matter presented to its meeting next Monday night. So that will be available to the public, I guess, late Wednesday, Thursday morning. So the information, there will certainly a full report outlining different options that Council will consider next Monday evening.
Thank you for that. The next question is from Marilyn Kaiser, if I have said the name correctly. Is Marilyn still here? Is that the name? Nope, she's given up and gone home, I guess. A statement from Tracy Jones. Would you like to come forward, please?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm going to take the meeting back to where it started with motion number 8.1 However, I'm going to approach it from a different perspective. I think the laneways around the old Dina STT reserve are at such a perilous state that should a fire truck need to get in there, it would break its axles within 1 kilometre of leaving either the Calder Road or the Old Dina Road. Therefore, because the council has the right to tell landholders to pull their stocks up, I request that the council tells STT, pull your socks up, fix the roads, fix the approaches to the bridges, and I want to see, and that we the council want to see this done every year so that we can tick it off as done. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your statement. As there are no further statements without notice or questions without notice, I'm now going to declare that there is no further business at the AGM, closed at 10:40. I thank everyone for being here, your forbearance. It has been a long meeting, so I thank everyone in the gallery, the staff and councillors. Thank you.